Indiana Jones goes on a globe-trotting adventure in search of his father, who has gone missing in his quest for a divine higher power, the Holy Grail. Indy's search for the Grail leads to an emotional reconnection with his father. The third Indy film in the series, and the last of the 80s, saw familiar faces return for yet another rip-roaring escapade. Spielberg ended the decade on a high, cementing his iconic character's place in Hollywood history. My name is Luke, and the two fellas who could get lost in their own museum are Westy.
No, I respected your privacy and I taught you self-reliance.
And Matt.
The dog? You were named after the dog? Oh.
All the right movies are on a quest for the Grail, and in this sort of race, there's no silver medal for finishing second. Hi everyone, welcome to All the Right Movies, a podcast on classic and hit films that belongs in a museum.
Sure does.
This week we're back in the saddle with Indy, but this time he's brought his dad along for the ride. Ford, Connery, Spielberg, Alexei Sayle. It can only be Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Alexei Sayle, brilliant. Yeah.
Now, before we get on the plane, we're going to tell you about becoming a patron of All the Right Movies, as if you didn't know already, but if you are a new listener, then listen up.
Yeah, too right.
Over the years, we've recorded around 200 podcasts. Can you believe it? 200 podcasts
Wow.
for the
Yes.
show. You can. It feels like it. It's not the years, it's the mileage.
Is that all?
And you can listen to all of them if you become an ATRM patron. And right now, only the most recent 20 classic podcasts are available, like the one that you're listening to now.
Mm-hmm.
We've done countless more along with exclusive episodes we've created for our patrons, and that includes our current Patreon-only podcasts, double feature, and the watch list.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Take it from us. Take it from the horse's mouths. Two great shows that you miss out on there.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
definitely.
Loads of great
Worth
stuff.
it just for them.
Spoiled for choice. So if you do want more from the ATRM boys, please support us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for our classic podcast archive, or on Patreon for our entire 200-strong podcast archive, everything that we've ever produced. And if that doesn't work, I'm sure we've got a few Rolls-Royce Phantom 2s somewhere that we can get our hands on.
Oh, definitely. I even like the colour.
The keys are in the ignition. So if you can support us, everyone, we would very much appreciate it.
Yes, we
Yes.
would really appreciate that. Thank you so
guys.
much, guys.
Back to it then, Westy. This one
Yeah.
was obviously your pick.
Obviously.
Do I need to ask why you want to talk about
No,
Last
you don't.
Crusade?
No, you should know. You should know by now. Absolutely no reason why you need to know. There's just a magic to this film.
Oh.
I absolutely adore it. It's one of my very, very favourites. It's probably an earliest memory of going to the cinema. Saw this in '89 when it came out.
Brilliant.
It was unbelievable. I left there completely changed. What a time I had. It just, time stood still, the world disappeared, and I was just engulfed in this character that I'd loved. Because I'd seen Raiders, and I'd seen Temple of Doom, obviously.
Yeah.
And this was like, it was just a reward to see this on the big screen. It's one of my son's favourites. Obviously, he loves Temple of Doom over this one because he's a bit of a maniac.
Of course, he's your son, that's why.
Of course, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think I loved Temple of Doom before I'd kind of invested a little bit more into this one. But it's just a great story. It's a great premise, and it's a very, very personal film for Spielberg. And I think it's a very personal film for everybody involved. It's a great father and son story. Easily the funniest of the Indiana Jones films.
Yeah.
It's very, very big. It's very, very loud. All the set pieces are amazing. All of the actors are amazing. It's an amazing film. I absolutely love it. It's one of my very favourites. Let's just get into it.
Let's do it. But before we do that, Matt, why do you want to talk about Last Crusade?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Come on, Westy. You know the protocol.
The people here. Sorry, Matt.
Well, I'm actually surprised it's taken us this long to get around to another indie film, to be honest. When we
Really?
did
Yeah.
Raiders, that was a very long time ago. So,
It's my second podcast, I think.
well, there you go. That's how long
5
ago it
years
was.
ago.
Yeah. I mean, this one, though, what can I say about it? That just isn't immediately obvious. I mean, this and the original trilogy, it's just always been there for me. It's always been a massive part of my life growing up. Everyone involved in this is on absolute top form because everyone by now, everyone involved knows the character inside out. They know what the film needs to be. There's a real sense that the stepping back from the darkness that they brought to Temple of Doom, this one does have that real lightness of touch, which it needs. And it's got a real emotional core to it. And I just never, ever, ever feel to be just completely entertained by it.
Yeah, it's a personal reconcile, the whole film, isn't it, all the way through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's magnificent. Yeah, I mean, I was, like you two fellas, already an Indy nut by the time this came out. I'd seen Raiders, but I was most familiar with Temple of Doom, which I loved. So when this came out, I saw it at the cinema. I loved it naturally. First in line when it came out on VHS. It's been with me, and it sounds like the same for you fellas. It's been with us for over 35 years. Revisiting it for the show, you're right, Westy. It is hands down the funniest in the series. But also, I was struck by how emotionally resonant the film is, that relationship between Indy and Henry, something that I hadn't fully appreciated beforehand. But aside from that, it's just a classic Indy adventure, boys' own stuff, taken in some incredible locations, some top-tier action set pieces. It's pretty much perfect blockbuster cinema for me.
Yeah.
And on a final note, I never ever thought that two of my podcasts back-to-back would star Denham Elliott, but here we are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The last one was trading places for me.
Yeah, great.
But more on that guy later, because he is unbelievable.
Gold in this. It's absolute gold in this. The pen, you see.
I just want to get off this thing.
Every line is just absolute gold.
Amazing. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was written by Jeffrey Bourne, directed by Steven Spielberg, and produced by Robert Watts for Lucasfilm Limited, and distributed by Paramount Pictures. Filmed in various locations across the globe, including Spain, West Germany, England, Italy, America, and Jordan, it was released on the 24th of May 1989. Harrison Ford stars as Indy, Sean Connery as his dad, and there's a wonderful supporting cast which includes Alison Doody, Julian Glover, Denham Elliott, and John Rhys Davies.
Yes.
We have our tickets at the ready, and we're firstly headed to Utah 1912 to catch up with the young Indiana Jones.
Does anybody here speak English?
The beginning.
The opening of Last Crusade sees a young Indy stealing the Cross of Coronado from grave robbers, which lead to an epic chase scene on a train.
Yes.
As a result, what we get is the greatest cinematic origin story of the last 36 years, and it's only 11 minutes long.
Yeah.
Matt, you're up first.
Yeah.
That's just my humble opinion, though.
I wouldn't disagree. I love this opening so much. Just stunning vistas, first of all, to open this film.
Beautiful.
It's like John Ford. Like that blue sky, it's like Spielberg reassuring everyone, like, this isn't going to be dark and gloomy like Temple of Doom. This is going to be fun.
Look how wide open it is.
How wide open it is. It's going to be fun with a capital F. And you get that vibe straight away because there's just some brilliant twisting of expectations here, tracking the two Boy Scouts through the caves. And you think, okay, Spielberg, he's mimicking the opening of Raiders, so he's going to hold off revealing Indy's face so we can see the jacket, we can see the fedora. But then he turns it on its head because obviously it's that lovely play in expectations and it's someone else completely. But wouldn't it have been amazing if he'd cast Tom Selleck as this guy?
Oh, that would have been great.
Yeah,
that would have been perfect.
That would have been so perfect. I do think it's just a little heavy-handed how often Herman says Indy's name. He's like, Indy, Indiana, Indiana. Yes, we get it. This is the young Indiana. We've worked that out by now. But it's fine because then it flips on its head because if this is Indy, why isn't he scared of the snake that he picks up?
Yeah.
It's a brilliant setup for a joke that we're going to get in about 10 minutes time, which this film does brilliantly. It sets up so many jokes and the payoffs are all excellent. I think the slapstick is funny with the horse moving out of the way when Indy goes to jump on it.
Great.
But what I really get from this, and the thing I always really want to talk about, is River Phoenix, because I think we'd all agree he doesn't really look like a young Harrison Ford, but he nails the mannerisms. When he's taken the cross and he's about to climb back up and he just looks back and grins, that's pure Harrison Ford somehow.
It is. Yeah.
He just captures him. When he runs out of the cave and he sees all the other scouts have gone, that line delivery, everybody's lost but me. Again, that's just such a Harrison Ford-esque delivery. It's a remarkable performance from Phoenix in the film. It's just off to such a cracking start.
Phoenix was drafted in on suggestion of Ford. He'd worked with him on the Mosquito Coast and thought that he looked like him as a kid and that Phoenix could do a really great impression of him, which, as Matt was saying, he really does.
Yeah,
he does. Yeah, I mean, it's probably the most inspired casting choice ever.
It's
probably only matched by Sean Connery as Indy's dad.
This film is just a perfect casting masterclass.
Yeah.
Mastercast, if you will.
River Phoenix, just, I mean, to die for in this film.
Sensational.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Sensational.
And it goes from there into one of the first action set pieces of the whole film. And it starts on a really high bar. And I'm really pleased to say it doesn't really drop from here. And there was some expectations on Phoenix's shoulders to really pull this off as a set piece and as a kid doing it. And he really does every single step of the way here. Not only is his delivery, his line delivery perfect, but his facial expressions are perfect, but also his physicality is perfect. Great moment where his horse jumps over the camera and then he's pursued by the two cars before he gets on the train. That's the same view as Raiders when he jumps over and then the Javitos are running after him. So Spielberg's using that again just to remind you. And I love the way this whole film just discounts Temple of Doom completely, and he just harks back to all of the things he did with Raiders and brings that back. Yeah, that was just a bad. That Milk was a bad choice, and he just has that really good idea of linking them all together, which really works for me. But there's some bits in here that just really resonate for the character. The snakes, he falls into the snake pit, and you just think that he's not that bothered. It's like, he's a bit frightened. But then when that thing comes out of the water, it's what the fuck is that?
Yeah, it's terrifying.
It's disgusting, and that really terrified me when I was a kid. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get over this and finish watching this film, because that would do it for me. And I was scared of snakes since then. The scar he gets from the whip when he's trying to keep the lion down, and it's just actually Ford's scar. That's brilliant. That lion itself tests his faith, and then he has to take the leap from the lion's head at the end of the film. That all ties together. I love that you've got Heart Kid. He gives him that line, and he's got the heart badge from the Scouts on his uniform. Yeah. It's just these little things that just really, really work together. There's no real sense of peril. You know these guys aren't going to necessarily hurt him. They just want this crossback, and he's just defiant. It's the Indiana Jones defiancy of like, no, I'm right. This belongs in a museum. I've got morals, but I'm still stealing something with morals, and it's still funny. It's great, and he holds on to all of that. And then when he gets back to the house, and you don't see Henry, you just see the finger come up, and it's in Greek, and he knows how to count in Greek. It's fine. And you get them really, really wonderful lines where it's just, may he who illuminated this illuminate me. And we'll get that as a payback at the end of the film. Yeah. And it's not the illumination that he's looking for. I think it's just a really wonderful sequence, completely sets it up. And it's just a heartbreaker for me every time I watch this, that Phoenix was taken so young and so recklessly. It's devastating. Yeah. Absolutely devastating, because if anyone else could have made this franchise what it should have been, it would have been River Phoenix.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the number, like you're saying, the number of setups for the character that we know and love over two films that is here in this opening scene, trying to tame the lion with the whip. Now he's got a whip, and that's his.
That's his thing.
That fear of snakes when he falls into the box full of snakes. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And that fedora.
Yeah, and that guy who gives Indy the fedora, he is simply called Fedora in the film. Although in an earlier draft of the screenplay, he was actually going to be Abner Ravenwood, who, as we know, that's Indy's mentor and Marion's father from Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a nice tie-in, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It would have been a nice tie-in, but I think it's just it would have been a little bit too tight. You need something that just has this mystery. They don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
One of the carriages young Indy goes into is called Dr. Fantasy's Magic Caboose.
Yes.
And this is Frank Marshall's pseudonym when he's performing magic tricks. Don't know why he should be performing magic tricks, but he was similarly referenced in Poltergeist, wasn't he?
It was. Yeah.
If you can recall. Yeah. And it was Marshall who came up with the idea of Indy escaping through a false bottom box.
Right.
It's a great move all in one shot.
Yeah.
Tell you what a great setup you get here as well, which doesn't get resolved right till the end. It's just the shot of the dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you just think, shot of the dog, lovely, he had a dog. That's setting up one of the best jokes way in advance. Because that wouldn't work at the end if you hadn't seen the dog earlier.
Exactly. In this moment on the train, Michael Lantieri, the mechanical effects supervisor for the film, he said he found it difficult shooting. He said, you can't just stop a train. If it misses its mark, it takes blocks and blocks to stop it and to back it up. So he had a real problem doing this scene. He said that he hid handles for the actors to grab onto when they were moving through the carriages. But the interiors were shot not on the train, but at Universal Studios in Hollywood. And they were built on inflated and deflated tubes to create the effect of the motion of the train.
Right.
Looks legit.
Yeah, you cannot tell that at all.
And very much like Raiders, thousands of snakes were used for this sequence, but the container that Phoenix falls into is full of fake snakes.
Right.
Rubber.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Rubber Phoenix.
Rubber Phoenix. Well, that's going to make it in, isn't it? And with Westy's joke, we'll break from proceedings there and ask our first Patreon question.
Okay.
We mentioned Patreon at the top. One of the other benefits is you can ask us a question for the film that we're talking about. We'll answer it right here, right now. Our first one comes from Kirsty. Hello, Kirsty.
Hello, Kirsty.
Kirsty says, I love this film and it might be my favourite of the Indy series. She said, seeing Ford and Connery have such good chemistry and be that comedic was amazing. But she's thinking about the backstory here. What other good backstory setups like this can you think of in other films, like the one with River Phoenix?
Okay.
Right.
So great setups. I think we'll need to use artistic license because this one is quite unique.
Yes.
It is, yeah.
But where are you at with Kirsty's question, Westy?
The ones that sit with me where I get a very good sense of what is to come from the backstory that's even kind of before the credits have rolled is The Departed. Works for me. I think we get a really good sense of the backstory to that, where the characters' motivations
Never thought
are.
of that. Brilliant.
Magnolia, I think that sets up everything beautifully. That's about 15 minutes of pure backstory before we get into it. Lord of the Rings tells the whole story. Another Paul Thomas Anderson effort, There Will Be Blood. I think the opening of that, dialogue-free, sets the story and sets the ambitions of Daniel Plainview, just seeing what he's been through. 28 Days Later sets up the disease better than any other zombie film I've seen, to be honest. And it is
that's good, actually. Great.
Pretty forgettable, but not really when you think how important it is. And lastly, Children of Men, for a film that sets the tone in the opening for how that film's going to kind of go and the backstory to everything that's happened. That's up there for me. Then that's my thoughts on that one.
Wonderful, yeah. Great, Westy and Matt. I mean, can you decipher wade through that huge list? Classic Westy. Is there any crossover?
I mean, amazingly, there was only one crossover there. I did also say Lord of the Rings.
Great.
In terms of other bits of backstory that I think are set up really effectively very early, Halloween was the first one that came into mind. Just completely sets up Michael Myers, why he's so dangerous in that opening. Another horror one for me, The Omen, just setting up the early birth and mystery.
Excellent.
Of Damien and Gregory Peck's character knows something that his wife doesn't, which sets the whole chain of events off really well. And the last one for me is the opening to Unbreakable, where you get the background to Samuel L. Jackson's character.
Nice.
Excellent.
Yeah, I didn't know there was only 3. My apologies. I doubled up on that. Batman Returns is another good one.
Well, I've gone for Batman Returns, Children of Men. No, there's one crossover from your list, Matt, but none from yours, Westy, for me.
There you go. Okay, great.
I think, like I said, using an artistic license, and I think we're going to be talking about The Godfather Part 2.
Nice.
Similar to Indy in that it's coming in on a sequel, telling the story of a character that we already know and love and have affection for. Obviously, it's the equivalent to a whole film as opposed to an 11-minute scene, but still magnificent stuff.
Yeah, interwoven backstory. Great stuff.
Like you said, Matt, the opening of Halloween, it's a masterclass by John Carpenter. Technically and narratively, we get everything we need in the opening 10 minutes to set us up for the terror in Haddonfield for the next 80. And finally, I'm sticking with horror, obviously, and going with Fred Krueger's backstory in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nice.
It's told kind of halfway through the film. Nancy's mother tells her what she doesn't want to hear and even brings out his glove as terrifying proof. And I can visualize the whole scene with the parents of Elm Street kids cornering Freddy and giving him 6 of the best. Obviously burning him to the ground.
6 of the best. Very nice. Take that.
Right, take that, you rascal. 6 of the best for you.
Yeah, so I can really visualize that without it being in the film. Although maybe I'm kind of conflating that with the scene from Freddy's Nightmares, the TV show, which has his backstory is in the opening episode, the pilot episode.
Yeah, okay. The remake has it as well, doesn't it?
The remake has it as well. So maybe I'm getting a little confused, but still powerful nonetheless.
Yes, of course. That always sticks with you. That film.
Yeah, the remake.
How can I get Freddy Krueger into this?
How can I get Freddy Krueger into Last Crusade? I know. Here it comes.
Here we go.
Well, thank you for the question, Kirsty. Let us know what your favourites are.
Yes, thank you, Kirsty.
And coming back to Last Crusade, after the opening, adult Indy recovers the cross and returns to his day job. And I'm picking up where he meets Donovan. Walter, not Jason.
Can you imagine?
Too many broken hearts in the world.
There's too many. That would have been my fucking heartbroken.
This scene, it sets everything in motion for the rest of the film. It's a quiet scene, but it's pivotal. It may be a little innocuous, like on the surface, but if you really dig down, it introduces Donovan, the Night Shield, the Holy Grail, Indy's dad, and sets Indy off on another adventure. All the iconography of the film is now famous for is in this scene. Impressive for a scene that goes unnoticed and could have been a snooze because it's pretty much all exposition. And what helps, I think, is the performance by both actors, which are very nicely understated. But you can see that Julian Glover is drawn on his theatre background when he delivers his lines. Things like, we're about to complete a great quest that began almost 2,000 years ago. We're only one step away. Not much riding on it then. No. But he easily pulls it off with quiet confidence, and not to be outmatched by grandeur. I love it when Indy dips his finger in the moe to clean the 2,000-year-old stone tablet.
Yeah, it's great.
Priorities.
Of course,
great. So a great scene, and now we're off on another great adventure. Keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, nice.
So with Henry nowhere to be found, Indy and Marcus hop on a flight to Venice. How will they recognise this Dr. Schneider when they see him, Westy?
Well, I mean, I recognised her straight away, and I still do, to this very day.
Who
when
doesn't?
I was a child, Marion was straight out the window. Forget about her. This is the new kid on the block. Willie, nah, not bothered. Elsa, here we go. Now we're talking. Fantastic performance from Alison Doody as well. Very, very young when she took this role. And I think she just absolutely shines in it. Just great. Loads of twists and turns to her character, and she nails every single one of them, I think. She just keeps you on your toes constantly. And it's great how this harks back to the classroom sequence of 70% of archaeology is research, and it's in the library, and X never marks a spot, and it's not exciting. And he's trying to convince his students that what he does, or archaeology itself, isn't exciting, whereas us as an audience kind of go, yeah, I'm sure it is. Fine. And she says, I'm going to arrange for them to stay a little bit, open a little bit longer. It's going to close in a moment. I'll be like, oh, wow, she's just got authority here. She's just perfect. Got it all. I just wouldn't have even bothered looking for the X marks the spot. I would have just been like, do you want to just go and get a coffee? And Marcus can go and have a look for something. Or just, let's explore this relationship as opposed to the, the Grail thing.
They've known each other for 2 minutes.
Yeah, you do, right? When you know, all right? But yeah, it's just wonderful. X never marks a spot, and then it does. And he's on top of the ladders, and he points down. He can't even believe it.
10.
What Spielberg does here, he cross-cuts this with probably one of the funniest bits in the whole film, of that librarian stamping the book. And that timing, it's so brilliant. It's almost like just really classic first book of like visual sound humor cross-cut in film.
It really is.
And it's just that stamp and the bang, and then, Ford's looking around, and this guy's got no idea, and he's like, ding, bang, dong. And it's just the noise of it's funny.
Yeah, it's even reverbs through the library.
It should be really threatening, but it's like metallic and it's rock and it's perfect and it makes perfect sense. And it's just the way he kind of leaves it on top of the book.
I love
just looks at it. He's just
like, I'm just going to leave that there.
Yeah. I think I've had enough today.
Yeah.
I feel like that at the end of
like
most
that.
work days. Yeah. And then going into the catacombs, which is wonderful. There's a throwback here to Raiders, which I always love because there's that little subtle tint in the score.
Amazing.
And he's like, it's the Ark of the Covenant. You sure? Pretty
sure.
And he doesn't look at it for too long because he knows you can't look at the Ark for too long at the end of Raiders. And I love that as well. That. And he just kind of moves past it. I've got a little bit of a problem with this petrol that they're walking through. I always have. And he just thinks it's a really good idea to light a massive torch. Like if he drops that, we're in serious trouble.
Dangerous.
So just keep a hold of that. Don't drop it. I always feel on edge with that because just one match, boom, and then you're just the fire sweeping through, the noise of that sweeping through, the sound design's incredible underneath, and it's like, how does that work? Why doesn't fire get underneath that? Didn't care. It would have been really hot for a start. I don't care.
No.
And it's like, right, I found a way out. I can open my eyes in petrol water. That's fine. No problem with that. Straight out. And then they're there and it just get that great line again. Venice. And then we're into another chase. We're into another set piece. It just doesn't stop. It's just fantastic for even the smaller bits. There's humor. There's character development. There's great dialogue, there's great callbacks, and then you're into an action set piece, and it's just one after the other all the way through the film. Fantastic.
There's everything. It's just got everything.
Yeah.
And those rats in the tunnels, they were bred especially for the film. And Spielberg went to the same place he did for all the rodents and the creepy crawlies he needed for the first two Indy films. They did go a bit OTT and actually bred 5,000 for him, but he did only need 2,000 of those. And the only stipulation he had was that they had to be disease-free because standard rats are just riddled with diseases.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Dear me. Rats I'm not that bothered about, but they really creep me out because you can feel them. You know that they are real creatures.
Yeah, when it's Nelson's hair.
Yeah,
God. Oh, yeah. It's when they're crawling all over each other. And there's like that massive...
Yeah, that's horrible. There's the one that he steps on as well, but doesn't put all of his full weight on.
And he just has to like lift his foot up. It's great.
Yeah. Those rats were substituted for mechanical rats when the fire whips through the tunnels.
Yeah.
Nice.
So there were no rats hurt during production of this film.
No. You can see because they're not moving. They're not moving at all.
Yeah. And like you said, Westy, following the subterranean chase, Indy and Elsa make it above ground, Venice, and they make a run for it.
Yeah.
and to seize the nearest speedboat they can find to make their getaway. You know, we've all been in a situation like this before.
Oh,
Yeah. It's very
Most
daunting
weekends.
now.
Yeah, it is.
It's exactly the same, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what Donald Southern and Julie Christie were doing.
Imagine like 10 midgets just running out of there diving on speedboats.
In Red Max.
In Red Max, yeah. Get the fuck out of here.
Well, this set piece is just a great companion to the tunnel sequence. The pace is ramped up and up and up and accompanied by some wonderful music by John Williams.
Yeah.
Indy in a fist fight on the back of a speedboat on the Grand Canal in Venice with a guy brandishing a gun. Seems like old times.
Yeah, doesn't get much better.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And then the head honcho called Kazim jumps on the boat and absolutely means business. And this is the set piece's great moment when it looks like the boat is being swallowed up by the propeller. It's getting closer and closer.
Yeah.
And I love that moment where the wood panel and roof catches and goes flying up in the air.
It flips, yeah.
Really gives a sense of danger, that.
And that's really Harrison Ford, isn't it?
It is really Harrison Ford, yeah. He
and
did
that's
loads of
pretty
stunts.
close, even from that lens. That's pretty close. But Spielberg loves a perilous propeller.
Oh, he
You got
loves
the one
it.
in Raiders.
Loves
You
it.
got the guy getting hung in Temple of Doom, and now
Yeah.
this. Yeah, it's great.
And in this scene, the two boats that Elsa drives in between were cabled together to keep things safe. So a speedboat full of dummies was launched from a platform in the water between the two ships, which is masked by the explosion. But they had to do the stunt twice because the first one wasn't picked up effectively by the camera.
Oh, all right.
It's really cut well to emphasise the explosion.
Yeah. And the noise of them just scraping out of there as well is great.
Yeah,
that
it
kind
is,
of metallic
yeah.
scrape.
Yeah, I love that.
Go between them, are you crazy?
Go between them! Alison Doody said, in Venice, no one told me how to drive the boat. I had to go at speed towards another boat with a camera on it, and behind the camera were Stephen and the big honchos from the studio, then George Lucas and Frank Marshall, all on the same boat. I was supposed to get a signal to veer left, but I left it a bit late, and I could see them all panicking. Now, probably could have gotten away with taking Lucas out, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And camera trickery was used in this scene to make the action look a lot more dangerous than it actually was. They made the boat extra long to keep a minimum safe distance between the actors and the propellers.
Yeah.
And it's shot at a specific angle to make them appear closer to the blades. It really scans on screen.
It really works.
Fantastic.
K-Bok Malikian plays the part of Kazim in this scene, a member of the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword.
Oh, yeah.
Spielberg saw him in Midnight Express and really liked his performance. Now, if you're going to keep it light after Temple of Doom, don't cast anybody out of Midnight Express.
Malikian might have worked with Spielberg earlier if fate hadn't intervened. He would have auditioned for the part of Salah in Raiders, but got caught in a traffic jam, so he missed his window.
Oh, really?
wow.
I thought he would have been good.
Yeah, he would
I
have
mean, I
been,
love John
definitely.
Rhys Davies, but he's really, really good. My soul
well-
is prepared. How's yours?
How's yours?
It's great.
Great. And on this Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword, who the fuck are these guys?
I don't know. Great, though.
These are keepers of the Grail who'll kill to protect it. But just why? There's too many questions. But, I mean, they're full-blooded in their beliefs. How aggressive are they? Machine guns. Yeah. That's an aggressive move.
It really is. It's too aggressive.
Yeah.
We're going to protect the Grail, right? Do you want to be inconspicuous? That's probably a good idea. Let's just brand this on my chest and wear fezzes around Ving.
Yeah.
The Brotherhood of Tommy Cooper. How'd you get the Grail? Just like that.
It's the best thing you've ever said, Westy. That's the greatest thing ever. Well done.
Thanks.
Yeah, these guys, I mean, they're so protective, but they're just so cavalier that they'll incinerate everything in the catacombs under the library.
Yeah.
Surely that alone, you just burn the whole building and ruin everything that is sacred underneath it? What on earth are they playing at?
Yeah, really immature.
You can't have it. I'll burn it.
Yeah.
So after this, they get the location of Henry from Kazim, and that's when Indy and Elsa get to that castle, and it's all about payoff at this point because Henry's been built up so much so far in this film, like he can't disappoint when you first meet him. And I do feel at this part of the film, it just needs something extra because it's been incredibly entertaining. But so far, it's just been, this is kind of just the Raiders' plot points, really. Again, isn't, this clue, he meets the woman, and now they're going off. Yeah. So they need something different here. So Henry's appearance comes at the perfect time. And that chemistry between Ford and Connery, it's instantaneous. And it takes a hell of a performance to make Harrison Ford in the 80s in this role, make him just seem immediately bumbling inept. And that's exactly what Connery does. I mean, the first interplay between them, Junior... Yes, sir. Like, Ford immediately just becomes this little kid.
He comes in looks so nervous.
Stands to attention.
Stands to attention. And it's so well written because Henry's priority, he's hit Indy over the head with his vase. But his priority is clear by the fact he's completely ignored what Indy's saying about his head being okay. He's, I've never forgiven myself. He's not talking about the head. Just focusing on the vase. Oh, God, it's a fake. I mean, it just tells you everything you need to know about him. And these two together, with that writing, the comic moments just pop off the screen, one after another. The Nazis come in. Dr. Jones? Yes. In perfect unison. Amazing. Yeah. Henry's whole speech about his son not being that stupid to bring the diary along with them, contrasted to the facial expression you get from Harrison Ford here. Like, no, Dad, no, sorry, no. Like,
you have the diary in your pocket.
I should have mailed it to the Marx Brothers.
That line's magnificent. And it's just incredible how immediately convincing they are as father and son and how quickly you understand that relationship. The whole scene's hilarious, and it ends on such a great note when Indy grabs the gun, kills the Nazis, and Henry's aghast at it. Look what you did.
Look what you did. I can't believe what you did.
Yeah. He's not what you expect Indy's dad to be like at all. It's wonderful.
What I love about the scene as well is that Indy has got scant regard for safety or cunning or anything like that. Mm-hmm. He just bundles into this castle, tells some cock and bull story about being a Scottish lord. I am Mickey Mouse. How dare he? So he lies about this story about being a Scottish lord. He whacks the guy out and busts through windows. How on earth did he think he was going to get away with it without being caught immediately? The guy at the door needs to just wake up and raise the alarm in the castle.
It's
ridiculous.
There's great foreshadowing in this scene as well when he spots the fake, which is how he has to suss out what the Grail is at the end. You cannot spot the fake one, but also he spots out Elsa as a fake. And the moment when Henry says she talks in her sleep about Elsa was completely unscripted. And when he said the line, filming had to stop because everyone was rolling around on the floor laughing. Spielberg even conceded right there and then that line was definitely going to make the final cut.
Well, of course.
Definitely see why it's amazing.
Yeah. And that scene is amazing. The camera does this massive zoom into Indy's face. It sweeps into Indy's face. He says, how do you know she was a Nazi? Talks in her sleep. And Spielberg leaves so much room for silent reaction. Yeah. And you can kind of tell that it was ad-lib considering Ford's face and Connery's just little smirk that he's trying to stifle.
Yeah, it cuts there, doesn't it? It cuts to a separate angle. Yeah, it's great.
It's wonderful. Okay, what an opening. We're on a rescue mission, but in classic Indy style, he's found himself at gunpoint immediately.
The director.
Steven Spielberg had an experimental 80s after Temple of Doom, The Colour Purple and Empire of the Sun followed, before he was back in the director's chair for a third Indy outing. And he was obliged to come back for a third bite of the Indy cherry for a few reasons. Firstly, when the idea was conceived in the late 70s, he gave Lucas his word that he would direct 3 films, and he rears true to his word. But also in 1979, he'd agreed with Paramount to do 5 Indy films. And finally, he wasn't happy with how Temple of Doom had ended up. He said, it was too dark, too subterranean, and much too horrific. I thought it outpoltered Poltergeist. There's not an ounce of my own personal feeling in Temple of Doom, which feels a little dismissive.
Mm-hmm. Both Spielberg and Lucas later referred to Doom as their divorce movie, as production started when they were both going through divorce proceedings with their respective wives. Can't do anything individually, can they? Do everything together. Let's go on holiday. Do you want to get divorced? Aye, fucking right. Let's do the same thing.
Let's go on holiday. two moments. I can't do anything without each other.
You got a film coming out. Do you want to go to Hawaii? Yeah, let's do that. Still do it.
So I guess Last Crusade is kind of like a Temple of Doom apologist. Spielberg even had to pull out of 2 potential big directing projects to get behind the camera for Indy, and that was Big and Rain Man, which he was both heavily linked to.
Yeah.
And as a result of his disdain for Doom, he set out to lean into the tone of Raiders a bit more, and he even drafted in Denham Elliott and John Rhys Davies back into the mix.
Yeah.
Also returning back was Pat Roach, back again after 2 roles in Raiders and 1 in Doom. He plays a Gestapo guard here. He was supposed to have a fight scene with Indy. Obviously, he loves a good fight scene with Indy.
On the Zeppelin, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. But it was
taking his top off for no reason.
Of course, yeah.
Why not?
Obviously, you've also got a scene with Indy teaching class, which precedes a scene between Indy and Marcus following up on a lead, just like Raiders.
Yeah.
So this feels very much in spirit of Raiders, but I think it's got a few elements that does set it apart so that it's not just a rehash of the original. It's not The Force Awakens, for example.
No, it's definitely not. It's got a much lighter tone to Raiders, this one.
Yes, there has. There's a lot more humour, obviously, and emotion at play in Last Crusade. And what I'm impressed with is Spielberg's handling of these, just absolutely deft. When I think about Last Crusade, it's a rollicking adventure in my head. But when I watch it, the emotion hits really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, look at the difference between the emotions of the film. When Indy thinks Marion is dead in Raiders, it's just breezed over. Not 5 minutes after she's exploded into smithereens, Salah is very dismissive. Life goes on, Indy. It's outrageous. So you just don't believe that she's gone. But this film really takes its time to make sure you're emotionally invested in these characters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another difference is the love interest. Alison Doody plays Elsa, and she said, with Elsa being a bad girl, it was really designed to veer you away from the damsel in distress from Temple of Doom. Certainly a move for the best.
Yeah.
And another good move was to reintroduce Nazis into the narrative for Crusade, just like Raiders.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't think any of us are complaining about that, if only to see them get their comeuppance.
Oh, absolutely. Every time.
So during the book burning scene, Spielberg was actually encouraging the Nazi extras to cross the fingers behind their backs when they were doing the Nazi salute. And in this scene is Michael Sheard playing Hitler, and that was a role he'd played twice before. He's also famously in The Empire Strikes Back, but our UK listeners might know him better from his performances on TV in Grange Hill and Off We the St. Pet.
That's right, yeah. He's in Raiders as well, wasn't he? He was like the U-boat commander.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And next to him in that scene is Blink No Miss It, Ron Lacey as Goebbels, who played Todt in Raiders.
Yeah. A requirement for that scene was for hundreds of extras to be kitted out in Nazi gear. Costume designer Anthony Powell sent his co-designer on a mission across Europe to get legit Nazi uniforms. I mean, I don't know how he asked for them, just quietly. The majority of which she found in Germany, which wasn't surprising.
Yeah, of course. Now, I mean, I expect nothing less from Spielberg, obviously. If this film is going to see loads of Nazis being busted up, the authenticity has to be spot on.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Despite how much of a bad taste it leaves in your mouth. Mm-hmm. Westy, your thoughts on Spielberg as director here?
Yeah, I mean, like we've said, it's a very, very personal film. I think, like Jaws is a personal film, I think this is next in line for the father and son relationship, just the other side of it.
Yeah.
Just, you know, when you've got a grown-up son and you feel like you've missed lots of opportunities with them growing up. And did I raise them right? Did I do the right thing? Was I too selfish? All of these questions are here, but they're done with such a deft touch, such a light touch, that you kind of watch it and go, well, it's all right because you've always still got time. And I think that's one of the elements of this film that really hits home with me, is that as long as you've just got 5 minutes is enough. And he says that in the actual script, 5 minutes is enough to tell people what you want to tell them. And once they're gone, they're gone. And that's what always hits me with this, is that, you know, it's a film about a cup that gives you eternal life. And you can give somebody eternal memories in 5 minutes. You can do that, and you can, if you express yourself. And I think that's what Spielberg's trying to say, is that you've got to appreciate what's around you and stop trying to chase treasure that doesn't mean anything. That's what I've done with 2 films, and they've both let him down. He leaves empty-handed. It would have just been another rock in the museum, and the art gets put into a massive warehouse. But what he's trying to say with this is that relationships are the real treasure in the world. Yes. And that's what you should always look for. And the museum should be your heart, for the want of a better kind of phrase of it. You know, not to sound too cheesy, but that's kind of what he's getting across without it being that, like, oh, God, I know what he's trying to say. And he doesn't lay it on thick. He disguises it with a lot of action set pieces, a lot of peril, a lot of humour. And it is complicated. Their relationship is very complicated. And it starts off very aggressive, especially from Indy's side. And this lack of understanding from Henry. And it's just them learning to understand each other is the true nature of the story. And I think that's what Spielberg was missing in his life. If you watch The Fabelmans, I mean, I don't think his dad ever understood what he wanted to do. Yeah. His mother did, but I don't think he understood his dad's priorities, his dad's motivations. And I think that was reciprocated from his dad not understanding his motivations. And the theme of this is still timeless. Yes, it's 1939, but what they're trying to say is still absolutely necessary.
Of course, relevant now, relevant always.
Very relevant, yeah.
I kind of find it interesting that although Elsa is, the obvious love interest, I think Henry has replaced the lady in Indy's life as the love interest.
It is.
That is a delicious piece of writing that they've both had sex with Elsa. It's outrageous. And Matt, your thoughts on Spielberg here?
This is Spielberg and his blockbuster pomp, isn't it? So
yes, it is.
Making a blockbuster now is a second nature to him. But what stands out to me is his third go-around with this character is he doesn't feel tired of it yet, and he doesn't feel tired of the character. And I think the reason for that, and I think it's the reason the trilogy is so beloved, is that he's found different notes to play each time. So Raiders is the original. It has the grit. Temple of Doom is dark. It gets pushed into the horror genre. And this time around, Spielberg firmly pushes it into the comedy genre. And I think that's just such a risky move. Like the next maybe final Mission Impossible movie is out this year. And can you imagine if Chris McCrory came out and said, well, this one, Ethan Hunt's dad's going to be in it for the ride and there's going to be loads of jokes. You'd think he'd gone mental.
It is Brian Cox.
Yeah. You think that can't be a Mission Impossible movie, but this is what Spielberg does here, and it pays off beautifully. Now, there's obviously comic beats in the previous two, but they're just really emphasised here, and some of it's in the writing. A lot of it is obviously in the dynamic between Ford and Connery, but Spielberg lets it flow. He doesn't try to play it down, but at the same time as amping up the comedy, he still delivers incredible set pieces at the same time. And it's Spielberg who adds comic touches, like in that opening sequence, when he cuts away from Indy falling into the box full of snakes, it's him that cuts away to the scream outside as the train goes past, which is really funny. You know, he knows the value of a good comic cut. It's the same when we talked about the librarian stamping the book, cutting back and forth from that. That's Spielberg, and it's really funny. When Indy and Henry are in the castle and the room's burning down around them, they get in the fireplace, which swivels around. Spielberg makes that funny by just holding on them with all the Nazis completely oblivious. So he frames and he cuts a lot of this like he's just making an out-and-out comedy. So Spielberg, top blockbuster form like you'd expect, but he's just added another string to his bow with the comedy element. I think the result is it's not just the funniest indie film. I think it's his funniest film, full stop.
Without doubt. It's miles funnier than 1941, let's be honest.
Yes, it is definitely.
The first gag you see when he misses the horse is straight out Buster Keaton, isn't it? Buster Keaton short film.
Yeah. They've got their roots in classic comedy of the Marx Brothers. And the Three Stooges, that kind of comedy. But this time around, when I revisited this film, I was howling with laughter. There are moments which we'll get to where I was uncontrollably laughing. Usually watching this film, I'm like, haha, yes, very good, very good.
Good.
But there's some incredibly funny moments.
Yeah, there is,
Well, I'm going to end on Spielberg with a comment from Vic Armstrong, stunt coordinator and Ford's stunt double.
Yeah.
He said, my lasting impression of Stephen was in Almira. He always wanted to have good light. For an hour before sunset, you ran your bollocks off. Stephen coming along his quad saying, come on, guys, you're killing me. Let's move faster. We've got to move faster. Can totally see him doing that.
Yeah.
The cast.
The main cast of Last Crusade takes us to some familiar places. And we're starting in the only obvious place, Matt. Alexei Sayle as the Sultan of Hatai. Go.
Yep. Korea High, obviously.
Indy, obviously, for you, Matt.
Yes, and it is tricky in a way because what else is there to say about Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones? It's similar to how I feel about Spielberg, really. This is him in his blockbuster pomp. No man has ever looked better than Ford as Indy in the 80s. The key thing about him is, and I think we all know in real life Harrison Ford can be a bit of a grouch, but if he trusts the director and he likes the script, you'll get greatness from him. You'll get magic in the performance. If one of those things is missing, you don't get the full Ford. You get a disinterested Harrison Ford. Now, he obviously trusts Spielberg by now, but you can tell he just loves this script. Yes. And it comes down, again, to what I said about Spielberg, really. It's the fact that this lets him be really funny. And again, yes, he has comic moments in Raiders and in Temple of Doom, but this one, it really lets him play them up throughout the film. So whether it's the scenes with Elsa, Venice, leave me alone. I don't like fast women. There's just some beautiful comic deliveries from Ford throughout this. He can inject physical humour, mostly with his facial expressions when the tank goes over the cliff and everyone thinks he's dead. Just that stumble, the way he stumbles up behind everyone and that look on his face. Like that was
wonderful.
Rough. Yeah. Beautifully done. He's really enjoying being funny here, and never more so than when he gets to play off with Connery. You can tell those two, they must have gone on like a house on fire.
Yeah.
So, for third time around, Ford is still getting new juice out of the character, and it's just a delight to see.
It's just magic, isn't it? The whole thing. Yeah. It's just lightning in a bottle from everybody involved.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ford's known for being a physical actor, but he took this to new heights in Last Crusade. It's him on the horse riding alongside the tank. Granted, the tank was only going around 10 miles an hour, but still dangerous.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to do it.
No. It's also him hanging from the barrel with the gun on the side of the tank, dangerously close to the wall.
Yeah.
The crew are just out of shot shoveling dirt and clay on top of him.
Right. You can tell as well because that angle's so important.
It really is.
You need it to be him,
It is. Ford's regular stunt double, we mentioned him, Vic Armstrong, he pulled Ford aside and told him to give it a rest so he could get some work done.
Take it easy.
He later said that if he wasn't such a great actor, he'd make a great stuntman.
Yes.
And John Rhys Davies was full of praise for Harrison Ford. He said, it was very interesting to see the way that the very determined, assertive young Harrison had matured into the laid-back superstar who allowed himself to be upstaged by a man he obviously adored and revered.
Yeah, well, there you go.
That's clear to see.
Yeah. In the scene where Indy is teaching class, he makes reference to a Dr. Tyree. Archaeology is a search for facts, not truth. If it's truth you're looking for, Dr. Tyree's philosophy class is right down the hall. Lovely. And this is a reference to a former philosophy teacher of Ford's, William Earl Tyree.
Yeah, nice little reference. You know, like what you were saying, Matt, he sometimes gets labelled, criticised as being a bit of a grumpy bastard, a bit of a grouch.
Yeah.
But he clearly has respect for those that came before him and a great reputation among his peers as well.
Yeah.
So Ford excelling in familiar territory, is there a more iconic character in movie history? I wouldn't have thought so.
Not for me.
No.
Now over to an inspired piece of casting. Who else could play Indiana Jones's dad than James Bond, Westy?
Yeah. I mean, that's the first thing I've got written down here. It's that James Bond reference. That must have got everyone so excited. I mean, Connery at this point is probably sick to death of being referred to as James Bond. He's like, that's not all I want to be remembered for. I'm an actor. I can act. I can do certain things. He's happy playing this really soft character, and the emphasis, like I said, is on his intelligence, not on his physique, even though he was runner-up Mr. Universe at one point, and he was James Bond. And we're talking about iconic movie characters. But what he does here, and the fact that he allows that to happen, is, to me, spellbinding. I've taken it for granted, watching it so young. Watching it in 89 and taking for granted how incredible this casting is and this pairing is, because there's not a lot of years between them anyway, so it shouldn't really work, but they have so much respect for each other. And Connery is, I think, over Ford, wants to play, and he's got a point to prove because he wants to play this against type, against every single role that he's played before. And if you're sitting now and you think, right, okay, we're going to do an Indiana Jones film, and we've just seen Raiders, and we've just seen Temple of Doom, and we're going to have his dad in there. Right. And it's going to be James Bond. Right. The first thing you write down is a huge set piece with him and his dad punching Nazis left, right, and centre. Kind of swinging off each other and usually and they have the physicality of both of them. That's where he gets the punches from. It's where he gets his softness from. It's where he gets his intelligence from. It's where he gets his library from. It's where he gets 70% of his archaeology from. That, to me, is unprecedented genius. The way that they flip that character of Connery on its head, and not once do you think he can fend for himself.
No, you don't think this is James Bond.
Yeah, he gets pushed back in that tank. When he throws the bag at Indy, and he throws the bag on, he's on the boat, and he's just like throws it off. He's just this kind of bolshy dad who's always right, but can't physically prove it. Doesn't stand up physically. He's just emotionally correct. You know what? It just works so well.
It does.
Even when you're writing the screenplay, right, you get to the end, and Marcus gets shot, so they have to team up together and sort out all the traps, and then Henry kind of breaks free and shows that he's got this physicality, and he uses the whip to swing across the cat. None of that happens, whereas in my head that's just the most obvious thing to do, and they don't do it. They keep it grounded, they keep it level, and that's how, again, the longevity of the film and why it's lasted so long, because it's against type, and every time I see it, it's incredibly refreshing, and I get something new from it every time. It's just beautifully realized.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just the way the characters are written is just wonderful.
Yeah.
As we've been alluding to, and as widely known, Spielberg was a massive James Bond fan. He always wanted to direct a Bond film, and he was twice rebuffed by Cubby Broccoli when he went to him cap in hand asking to direct a Bond film.
Yeah.
After Jaws and after Close Encounters.
Wow. Crazy.
How dare he?
I know, right?
How dare you?
How dare he? George Lucas pitched the character of Indy to Spielberg as being better than Bond. How thick the irony is that the ultimate James Bond actor came on to be Indy's dad, which works on, obviously, a number of levels. Yep. Not least that Indy may not exist if it weren't for Cubby Broccoli's stubbornness.
Yeah, exactly.
And Spielberg said he had Connery in mind for Henry from the offset and contacted a friend of his, Peter Hyams, who was currently directing Connery in the Presidio, to put them in contact. Connery initially rejected the offer out of hand because he didn't like the way he was written, and partly because Lucas's notes on Henry was that he was a Laurence Olivier type of person. And Ford also said Connery thought the character was too thinly drawn.
Yeah, he had reservations about the age difference as well. It widely regarded that he was only 12 years older than Harrison Ford at this point.
Yeah.
But the character was being written as being 29 years older than Indy.
Right.
So to age him up, he's got a white beard, whereas Indy is clean-shaven. Costume designer Anthony Powell dressed him up like his grandfather and used tweed suits and that fishing hat.
Yeah, love it.
And he wore rimless glasses that were custom-made because Spielberg wanted to see all of Connery's face on screen.
Right.
And of course, you got Connery's face, you want to see it all.
Yeah, right. And Connery only said yes after being allowed to alter the character somewhat. He added in jokes and lines of dialogue. His notes to Spielberg were that Henry has done everything that Indy has done in the past and done it better. If they couldn't get Connery, I mean, I don't see that on the screen really, but fair enough. In his head, maybe.
Yeah. He does sleep with Elsa first.
Well, exactly.
And I imagine he's done it better.
Probably, yeah.
Was rather wonderful.
Yeah, really good. And if they couldn't get Connery, Gregory Peck was also in consideration, as was John Pertwee of Doctor Who and Wurzel Gummidge fame. Sean Pertwee's dad.
Yeah, it is. It seems like a really unusual choice, John Pertwee. I mean, Gregory, the old Gregory Peck.
That would work.
That works for me. Probably a little bit too straight. But still, it worked. John Pertwee?
Nah, I don't see
I
that.
wouldn't have thought so.
I don't think so.
He just regenerated into Tom Baker when he gets shot.
Imagine.
Wouldn't work.
A big scarf.
Yeah.
That's a deep cut for all of you Who fans out there. To end on Connery, here's a quote from Harrison Ford. It was just really great to work with an actor who doesn't give a shit. I don't mean about the craft, but about his ego. We just clicked.
Yeah.
You can tell.
As is commonplace in the original Indy trilogy, low-key actors are recruited for the more villainous roles. First up is Julian Glover as Walter Donovan, the American entrepreneur who dupes Indy into a quest for the Grail, a duplicitous move executed with Elsa in tow as well.
Yes.
Glover is an English actor he appeared in. Look at his filmography, countless TV and movie roles. He's in everything. Retrospectively, he said that he wasn't happy with his accent in this film. I don't really have any problem with it.
No, it kind of works for me. It's sleazy and it's kind of he's trying to disguise something. He's trying to hide something and he's trying to hide the fact that he's a Nazi, which we'll find out at the end when you see his badge. So it works for me.
I've always thought he sounds a little bit Irish when he's in the cave.
Yeah.
Yes.
When he's talking about, they're welcome to have it. He just goes a little bit Irish there, weirdly.
Very nice. That was good. I can see what you mean now. I was thinking, maybe, you've nailed it there. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, he does, yeah. I don't think that he's like a perfect performance by any stretch, and he's quite forgettable, really.
Yeah.
A little bit like Paul Freeman's Belloc in Raiders. Maybe Freeman's...
I think Freeman's got a bit more meat on the bones with the character.
Yeah.
But there's still not loads for either of them, really, for their main villains.
No.
But maybe there isn't enough space in this film for him to be a towering villain.
But it's hard to be a towering villain over Nazis, isn't it, really? They're always the bad guys.
Yes, they are, yeah. Suppose that speaks for itself.
Yeah.
If he kind of hammed it up, it might have undermined the central story between Indy and Henry.
Yeah.
I think he does just enough. And I do buy his demeanour. It's not a huge leap for him to go from the good guy Donovan at the start to the one who shoots Henry in cold blood at the end.
Yeah.
No.
It's just a little hop from one to the other.
Yeah, it works.
And I buy that. Glover said, I don't know if Donovan was a nice man, but not many people can say they shot Sean Connery. I'll clear it up for you right now, Julian. Donovan is not a nice man. He's a
not nice.
He's definitely not.
Straight up Nazi is what he is. His nefarious partner in crime, to a degree, is Dr. Elsa Schneider, played by Alison Doody. Westy.
Yes.
Keep yourself at bay here.
She's wonderful.
She is.
Oh, she is.
I really, really like how complex Elsa is as a character. She flip-flops between her Nazi allegiances and her burgeoning feelings for Indy, which I do buy. Maybe a criticism is that she easily flip-flops between the two, so we never quite know where her heart lies, maybe until the end. She's absolutely convincing in that scene where she dupes Indy in the castle, where she's held at gunpoint and then steals the diary.
Yeah.
She's brilliant there.
Mm-hmm.
I like the writing of the character, and I think that Doody doesn't get the praise for pulling off this almost dual role.
Yeah.
I genuinely think she's excellent here and doesn't get the praise.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. In that rally as well, when they're burning the boots and she's like, all I have to do is scream.
Yeah.
She's just really conflicted. Just,
Fragile.
what am I supposed to do? Who do I want to be with?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's not just a by the numbers bad guy or femme fatale, is it?
No. Real complexities to the character.
She wasn't actually first choice, though, for Elsa. That was an actress who is probably best known for her work on UK television, Amanda Redman. But film-wise, you might recognise her for her part in Jonathan Glazer's Sexy Beast. But Redman has a paralysing fear of rats, so she just pulled herself out of the running straight away when she got that bit in the script.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right.
She plays Ray Winston's wife, doesn't she, in Sexy Beast?
Sexy Beast, yeah.
Yeah.
German actress Gudrun Le Grebe came in to read, but was rejected by Spielberg because she looked just like Amy Irving, Spielberg's ex-wife. Too much too soon, I think.
Get rid of it.
Yeah, just Lucas in the corner just shaking his beardy face. Nah. Alison Doody came on board having made her debut in A View to a Kill, which is wonderful. She was 21 when this film was shot, which makes her a full 25 years younger than Harrison Ford.
Wow.
Yeah.
Blimey.
I don't think that age difference is that apparent, to be honest.
Not, no.
I don't think it is.
It's abhorrent.
So a good supporting cast, not forgetting Denham Elliott and John Rhys-Davies, but Last Crusade is built on that dynamic between Ford and Connery, possibly the most loved father-son depiction in cinema.
I would have said so.
Yeah, probably.
All the Right Movies will be right back. Thank you for supporting us by listening to the sponsors for this episode. Thanks for listening to our sponsors, and now it's back to the show.
The middle.
We're back in Austria for the second act of The Last Crusade, which sees the Jones boys still at gunpoint, but Indy has an ace up his sleeve. And what follows is one of the best visual gags in cinema history.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Indy laying it on real thick. Marcus is on the trail. He knows a dozen languages. He'll blend in, disappear. You'll never see him again. With any luck, he's got the Grail already. Then hard cut. Does anybody here speak English?
It's that camera just slowly moving into Ford.
Yeah.
Just a dramatic. It goes to a low angle just for the drama.
Yeah.
It's massive.
Yeah.
Totally works.
Marcus bumbling around a dusty sun-bleached train station. And if we had any doubts about Spielberg trying to recapture the Raiders magic, it's confirmed in this scene when Salah shows up in a town that just looks like the Cairo set from Raiders.
Yeah.
He's such a welcoming presence on screen, so warming. And now he's teamed up with Marcus. There's no stopping him.
No.
And Marcus reassures him. He says, it's just you. He said, yes, but everything is under control. But from when Salah shows up, this is 1 minute comic masterclass from Denham Elliott.
Yeah.
Hitting so many notes. When he's making his way through the crowd, he's confronted by a woman with a chicken. He says, no, thank you, madam, I'm vegetarian. Does anybody understand a word I'm saying? I was howling at this. It's his physicality when Salah asks him where we're going. He says, well, this map should tell us, and he pulls it out of his inside pocket, and then he hastily shuffles it back in when the guy pretending to be from the Museum of Antiquity shows up.
Yeah.
And then his time is perfect when the guy bows down and Marcus kicks his head back.
Yeah.
It's one of the funniest moments in any film.
Yeah, it's
certainly
amazing.
in Spielberg's career. It's your servant, sir, and I'm his. Not to be overshadowed as well, Salah smashes the guy in the face asking for his papers. Egyptian Mail, morning edition. Just finished reading it myself.
Run.
Run.
Well, yes.
Did you say run?
Good morning. Run.
So good. There is no museum. I mean, why on earth the back of that truck is set up as a facade to look like the entrance of a house escapes me. It's very comfy.
Yeah. It's just, it harks back to that bit in Raiders as well, doesn't it? Where he hides him in the back of it, yeah.
But it really fits the tone of this scene. And when he bundles them in what turns out to be the back of that truck, Salah's kind of like goes towards the camera, like, come on.
Yeah, with the two fists. Who's next?
Come
Who
on.
wants some?
Scrappy do.
Scrappy don't. This scene is just absolute, I mean, a masterclass from Denham Elliott. It's just so funny.
Yeah.
Well, the laughs just keep on coming because then you've got Henry and Indy tied together. Henry just grumbling away to himself, oh, intolerable, like a proper old dad. Yeah. Like, you know, that's your dad when, you know, he's being served coffee and they've got to put the milk in. Oh, this is intolerable.
Yeah.
And then, like, when Elsa says her goodbye, it's like, I don't know how they've pulled this off because it should be so, the revelation that Elsa has slept with the pair of them. But it's not, it's just really funny. It's really funny. And that little smirk Elsa gives herself before she like kisses Indy, you just think, well, fair play. But when Elsa whispers in Indy's ear how wonderful it was, but Henry thinks she's aiming that at him. Oh, thank you. It was rather wonderful.
It was rather wonderful.
I mean, it's the comic beats, the comic timing are wonderful. It's another example of how hilarious Harrison Ford is. Just through his facial expression, just the way he turns his head to glare at Henry. Like, what are we talking about? And then Henry in turns get annoyed because Elsa kisses Indy but doesn't kiss him. Like, none of this should work at all, really. And yet somehow it does and it works beautifully. But it's then glorious to see them try to escape because what's really great here is they're both kind of crap at this. Like, Henry just drops the lighter straight away and the look on his face like, what should I do? I'll try blowing on it. Let's see what happens. Oh, no. Floor's on fire. And the chair.
And the chair.
Again, just comedy beats of the highest order. It's the same as the revolving fireplace with the Nazis on the other side that I already mentioned.
That great moment was like, Dad, what? Dad, what? Dad, what?
Yeah,
the fireplace.
The fireplace, yeah.
The fireplace. The Nazi woman just like giving him that smile before yelling, alarm!
Alarm!
It's, I mean, the comedy beats are quite basic, but they're executed to perfection.
Yeah.
They are. Also in this scene, very, very prominent is the use of the sound design, which is obviously a commonplace in the Indy series, big, bold sounds.
Yeah.
Sound designer Ben Burke got creative when pulling the sounds together for this film. 800 unique sounds were used, including the sound of friction against styrofoam cup, which was digitally enhanced and used for the fire in this scene.
Wow, great.
Also, other ones like the sound of a balloon being rubbed made up the sound of the earthquake tremors at the finale.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And clucking chicken sound was sped up and used as the chatter of rats in the catacombs.
Right. Okay, I'm vegetarian.
But this whole sequence, I mean, it's comedy basics, but it's just done so well and it's so charming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it goes from humour to set piece to humour within the set piece. And this is another great moment, a great action sequence from the time where he's like just so cocky. You know, if you sit down, the solution presents itself and he falls down the stairs. It's just so good. And that is so like Three Stooges kind of Buster Keaton kind of comedy. It shouldn't really work, but it's so funny. And then he's on the speedboat, he throws him the bag. I always love that bit. He's like, oh, for fuck's sake, Dad. And he just throws it back. No, we're not taking the boat. And then there's that great reveal where they just come out of the box and they're in that the motorbike with the sidecar. And it's like, Indy's been crap up to now, but this is what he's really good at. We've seen him do this many times, so he's got to impress his dad here. This has got to be good. And he actually turns into a knight. I mean, how he pulls down that flagpole just by putting his arm out is ridiculous. Not damaged in the slightest, but just pulls it down. Great, I'll just let that slide. So many things you let slide here. And he's like literally turns into a knight by jousting one of the Nazis off the motorbike. So his dad's pretty impressed with that because it harks back to something he understands. But when they just keep piling on top and he throws that, you know, the bit of the flagpole into the spokes and the bike goes up. It's so fantastic. It's so rewarding. Great. Watch it again, though. It's clearly just a dummy on the bike, and he explodes as they drive past. Fine, not a problem.
Oh, it looks great.
And that is great, but it's overshadowed by that moment when he's laughing and this is what I do. Look how good I am. Look how good I am.
What do you think about that, Dad?
I've just blown him up. Did you see that explosion? His dad's just winding his watch. So unimpressed. Just like,
seen it before.
Yeah, call this archaeology. Yeah, rubbish. That was rubbish. But it's after this sequence again because we've got the humour, we've got the action, and then we've got the emotion. And it goes so far into discussing, you know, how he was let down as a child and he doesn't understand it. Neither did Mom. He's like, well, yes, you did. Only too well. he's that serious about it, and it puts that in context of like, that's what he cared about so much, that there was his wife was dying and he just still didn't tell him because this is how much he believed in this whole quest. Yeah. And it brings that round and how much he's neglecting Indy because of that. But then he gets to cement his belief of how and why it's so important with a crucified Jesus behind him out of focus when he gives the speech in the sidecar about the armies of darkness are going to march across the face of the earth. Like, it's so important. It's greatly, it's just so well delivered. Indy gives up and just has to start believing in what his dad believed in. All of this regret that he's got and how neglected he was as a child because of this thing, he's now got to try and understand it. And he does. He gives into him and he goes for it. And I just think that's so important. Hilarious. They've slept with the same woman. He sets fire to a castle. They come out of the castle. They're going to go to a boat. No, they're in a sidecar on a motorbike. He just blows up some Nazis and then they just give a whole backstory of his full childhood. And now he's dedicated to his dad's quest.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It really hits emotionally, that whole speech.
I love
that interaction.
Yeah.
And that motorbike chase scene, that was inserted well after production had wrapped, because during previews, the film was testing through the roof with audiences, but both Lucas and Spielberg felt the film was missing something at the end of the second act. So that's why they came up with this chase sequence, which was shot in Fairfax, Northern California, which is near where Lucas lived.
Nice.
I think it felt too talky.
Right.
Without some action.
It needs it in there. Absolutely.
It does need it, yeah.
It does. It does. And it feels
a
little bit in spirit to the bike chase scene from The Great Escape.
Definitely.
Yes, very similar, yeah.
Really does, yeah.
So the Joneses are free and on their way to Berlin to retrieve the diary. Considering they're being chased by an army of Nazi troops, Indy and Henry make less than low-key travel plans and board a Zeppelin out of Germany.
That'll do it.
Yep, Matt, you're up.
I mean, it's just so much fun spending time with these two together, and it continues on the Zeppelin. I think it starts with a really underappreciated side gag because there's two men reading newspapers in a very suspicious manner. They've got them held up right in front of their faces, and you think, oh, there they are, that's Indy Henry, until Indy and Henry walk right past them. I think this gag doesn't get enough respect. I think that's really funny.
Yeah.
But once on the Zeppelin, I just love this because it balances, as it has been so far, to be fair, it balances the humour with some lovely character beats. I mean, Indy still so desperate to get his dad's approval, tell him that they've made it. But Henry just constantly cutting him down to size. When we're airborne with Germany behind us, then I will share that sentiment. And then just back to his paper. Right, thanks, Dad. No appreciation what I've done so far.
Just some kudos, just some.
Yeah, anything.
Tiny bit. Just a well done, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it leads into arguably maybe the most famous moment in the film. Indy, he sees Vogel coming on board, puts his arm around the steward, obviously somehow just knocks him out, I guess, and gets his uniform on before punching Vogel, which fits. Fits really well. And obviously Vogel's on there. He's checking everyone one by one. Love that bit where he just uses his cane to fall on Henry's newspaper. And he's really confused.
And he follows it down.
And follows it down,
He keeps reading it. Have you noticed that his newspaper's upside down?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. As well. Yeah.
Massive giveaway.
Yeah. I mean, it's just full of those beautiful little moments. And then obviously when Indy punches Vogel and throws him out the window, no, ticket. And everyone goes into that panic. Ticket. I mean, it's just a magnificent gag, that one. It's perfectly played by Ford, but it's perfectly set up and executed by Spielberg.
Yeah.
But then you get a little bit of downtime here for just a couple of minutes, and I think the writing needs it. You need the film to just breathe at this point to really establish firmly that relationship between Indy and Henry, make it more about the fact that they've both slept with Elsa. And it's that line from Indy about the last time they had a drink together, he had a milkshake. And the fact that even now Henry is still barely listening to him. He's just completely absorbed in that diary. I mean, that tells you everything. But I think when Henry defends himself, do I detect a rebuke? I think he does have a bit of a point. Like having a father who doesn't tell you to eat up, go to bed, do your homework, does teach you self-reliance to a degree. That's really laudable and good parenting. But not when you take it to the point that Henry obviously did, and where he just created this vast distance between the pair of them.
Yeah, it's more of a neglect, isn't it, than it is.
He's not a parent, is he?
No, he's not doing it on purpose to kind of to help him grow. He's just doing it because he's neglecting him.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's a little bit rose-tinted glasses from Henry's perspective because, you don't want your children to get independent that quickly. You always want them to rely on you for some things in life, which Henry doesn't get. And I think making that point in an Indiana Jones movie without absolutely hammering it home and it still feeling part of the narrative, that's really, really impressive.
Yeah.
It is.
And Connery said, when Indy says, "You never talked to me," I say, "Well, you weren't interested until you were 19, which is right below the belt, but probably right on the nose.
That's a great line as well.
Yeah.
It's very funny, very dismissive.
Yeah.
You left when you were becoming interested. When I was an adult, sure.
Yeah. Like that's Indy's fault.
Yeah. Just to go back to that bit where he smashes Vogel up and throws him out the window. I mean, how is he supposed to get away with this?
I know, and then just sits at the table and just has a drink with his
and just has a drink. It's him.
Takes
No, the Nazis were on there.
Yeah.
Like, this is Vogel, apparently.
Yeah, not only is like a Nazi guard and he's like, a flight attendant.
Yeah.
He smashes him in the face and then bundles him out of a window. What?
I don't think Zeppelins take off particularly quickly either, I would have thought.
No, that scene when Vogel's just raising his fist to the Zeppelin.
Why you
taking off. That's great.
Really Scooby-Doo, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is,
Why
yeah.
I yada?
Yeah.
And the sentimentality in that moment that you talked about, Matt, the rather than touching nature of the interaction, maybe slightly tainted when you find out that both Connery and Ford were not wearing trousers out of shot when they filmed this scene.
Of course not. Why? Why should they?
Why should they?
Why should they?
It is set in winter, of course, but they filmed in Spain in the summer and the set was boiling hot.
Right.
Connery said, I'm just going to sweat, so I'm just going to take my pants off.
Yeah.
And Ford followed suit, obviously.
Fair enough.
Tweed.
Yep.
Tweed's a killer in Spain.
It's a killer in the summer.
It is, yeah.
From the Zeppelin, Indy and Henry make their move, which is beautifully visualized by the shadows moving when the plane turns around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great visual storytelling.
They're taking us back to Germany. I love that.
Yeah, I love it.
Boom, and then the music just kind of ramps up a little bit.
They escape on what can only be described as a toy plane, despite how much is at stake here as well. There's just so much joy to be had in the cockpit of this plane. It opens with Henry, as proud as can be, when he says, "I didn't know you could fly a plane." He's just like, he's beaming, tapping him on the shoulder. "I didn't know you could fly a plane."
Giddy as a schoolboy.
Yeah. And, so this is going to be obviously plain sailing. But then Indy's got the most pitch perfect reply. "Fly, yes. Land, no."
Yeah.
And then Henry's face completely changes.
Yeah.
That's a really funny line. Yeah. That's great writing.
It is great.
And then they detach themselves from the Zeppelin, and Indy turns around and gives Henry a big thumbs up. Yeah. But as he turns around, he notices two Luftwaffe coming towards him immediately.
Yeah.
So it's absolute life or death stuff. Indy screaming at the top of his voice, 11 o'clock! Henry takes out his pocket watch, calm as you like. Yeah. What happens at 11 o'clock? And Indy screams some more, 12, 11, 10, 11 o'clock, fire! But it's another great comedy bit. Henry's kind of getting into this airborne battle stuff, but he gets a little bit over exuberant and obliterates the tail of the plane. It's beautiful. What a bastard that he just pins it on the other guys.
Of course you do.
I'm sorry, son. They got us.
Amazing. I always love that. You're going to pin it on anyone, pin it on the Nazis.
Yeah, because you're always going to buy that. Oh, the Nazis did it. No, did they? What a bunch of bastards.
Yeah.
Nobody will disbelieve that.
Contrary to belief, though, he does actually land the plane, which is great.
Yeah.
Hits it into a barn, which is wonderful. And then you just get that great moment with just the guy just changing the wheels of his car, going to put the hubcap on, and it just speeds away, and they're in there, and you can tell. And this shot is beautifully done and beautifully shot by Douglas Slocum as well. You can tell Spielberg's went, "Douglas, North by Northwest, yes? Can we do that?" And he's went, yep, we could do that. And it's just the gunfire, and it's serious, and then that bomb just drops.
Oh, it's so good. Because he says Henry goes, well, they don't come any closer than that. Smash!
Boom, and the land in the crater. It's just wonderful, really great visually. And this is one of my favourite exchanges of the whole film, of the whole franchise. And they just land down, and the plane's coming and circling around and coming back for them. And Henry says, "These people are trying to kill us." And he's like, "I know, Dad.
I know,
He
Dad.
goes, "It's a new experience for me." And he's like, "It happens to me all the time." And then pulls his hat down. I love that, because he's like, "Look, this is my world. And you're in it now, and this happens to me all the time," and he's just furious about it. And Indy can't save the situation. He doesn't know how to do it. and it takes Henry's intelligence, and he just sees the birds on the beach, and that just loads. He's chuk, 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 just fly up, and then he just turns, and he's got that umbrella over his shoulder, and he's just casually walking on the beach. And I honestly I fill up every single time when he's like, I suddenly remember my Charlemagne. It's like, but when he just delivers that line, "Let my armies be the rocks and the trees and the birds in the sky," and it's like, oh God, yeah, he actually does. Like, he's using his intelligence in a physical way to get us out of this problem, and it's just the way he walks past him, and Ford just looks at him. And he's got this look of like awe, almost of like, oh, what have I done? I should have listened to this guy. Like he's got some chops, and if only I'd thought the way, I could have learned a lot more from him. And you can see this like regret, and this almost like, right, I'm going to start taking this seriously now. You know, from them escaping the castle to this point now, it is just an absolute bonding session. And it just accumulates in this wonderful moment on a beach that's so recognizable to me. It could be down one of our beaches just down the road. It looks very, very similar.
Yeah, it does.
To like where I grew up. So it felt like it was home, and it felt like very, very comfortable. Just so well thought through. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's Henry stepping up in Indy's world as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And Indy going, wow, okay, I need to step up into his now.
He's got smart, yeah.
And in this beach scene, real seagulls were used originally, but apparently they are the most stubborn of all birds, and they just wouldn't budge, so they drafted in doves to replace them instead.
Right. I mean, we know that only too well, seagulls. Absolute bastards.
Yeah.
So by hook or by crook, Indy and Henry evade the icy grip of the Nazis once again and are headed for Alexandretta.
Alexandretta.
The crew.
As you'd come to expect with a Spielberg Lucasfilm production, Last Crusade has a top-notch crew working at the height of their game. We're starting off with our thoughts on Jeffrey Boehm's screenplay, of which there is a complicated backstory.
Okay.
But our thoughts on the screenplay first. And what I like is the emotion in the film, which, we've been talking about, the father-son relationship.
Yeah.
But that emotion is all the more unbelievable considering it's a globe-trotting romp with an endless roster of exciting set pieces and comedy bits.
Yeah.
It's not overly sentimental either, but there's something a lot deeper going on in this installment. The quest for the Grail becomes metaphorical of a quest for a real relationship between father and son. We've talked about the touchstone moments in this stunted relationship already, and there's more to come. But the opening interaction between a young Indy and his dad, the conversation they have in the Zeppelin, the "I thought I'd lost you boy" bit, the let it go moment at the end.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful relationship arc happening between these two characters, almost in secret, because it kind of goes unnoticed as it's masked by this rip-roaring, globe-trotting adventure that they're on in search of the Grail.
Yeah.
It's wonderfully done, really subtle. And the writing of Indy as a character makes so much more sense with the introduction of Henry, because we've been on the trail with Indy for 2 films before this, and we haven't even stopped to think what his motivations are. Why would we really?
Yeah.
But in Last Crusade, I think it's safe to assume that Indy has almost certainly chosen his career path to seek the approval of his dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forever on the search for historical artifacts, the most precious of which has always eluded him, a loving relationship with his father. That's great writing.
It is.
I mean, the dialogue's fantastic. We'll talk about that later, but the narrative beats are really, really good. They're very strong writing. In a blockbuster like this, it's not commonplace.
No, definitely not.
Matt, your thoughts on the writing?
It's one of those pieces of writing that looks effortless and you think it's easy because they've already established this character, but it's anything but really. And I think the further sequels definitely prove that. And the bit I want to focus on is one of the bits that is, I think, one of the toughest things to get right, which is to establish the MacGuffin and the puzzle elements of the plot and how they get there. Because off the top of my head, it'll be interesting to know what you guys think is. Can you remember what the crystal skulls do in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
No,
exactly.
No clue.
No clue. I remember what the Dial of Destiny does, but I can't remember how they track it down, what clues lead to it. This does both brilliantly. The Holy Grail with eternal life to whoever drinks from it. That's great. That's easy to understand. Totally understandable stakes in one line. And it's the same with how they find it. The clues are easy to follow and are easy to comprehend. And it links together beautifully as in what they are and what they mean. So there's the wonderful sense of you're working it out along with Indy and everyone else. You're discovering the path in a way that takes you with it. Finding the markers in the library. That's where the tin is. I get that. That's where you go. I understand what they're looking for. The clues have to get you involved. And maybe the biggest compliment I can pay the script in these terms, it makes taking charcoal ribbons look really dramatic and really interesting. When he's doing it, oh shit, yeah, that's the next clue. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, say, compared to the two sequels, which are just so muddled in terms of how you follow along the adventure and what the stakes are and what Indy's looking for and why is it important. This is just an absolute class above.
Well, as you mentioned, the MacGuffin there, Matt, I think it's right that we have our third and final question from a Patreon of ours, and that is the legendary, by all accounts, Viper26. Hello, Viper26.
Hello, Viper26.
Hello, Viper26. Great name.
Obviously, he's incognito, Westy.
That's fair enough. I thought it was his real name. I wish it was my real name.
Well, Viper says, if I may call him Viper, he says in Raiders, the A-plot is the pursuit of the Ark, the B-plot is the relationship between Indy and Marion. In Doom, the A-plot is the pursuit of the Shankara Stones, the B-plot is the relationship between Indy and Short Round and Indy and Willie. In Last Crusade, the A-plot is the relationship between Indy and his father, the B is the pursuit of the Holy Grail. This reverses the plot priorities of the first two movies, making relationships the primary plot. Do you think this plot focus reversal changes Last Crusade for the better or worse compared to the other two films? Matt.
Wow.
Digest that.
Yeah, very good question. It's going to take a second. I just need to work out where he's going with this. Yeah. Okay. I think for the better, if that's what he's asking, because I think there's only so many times you can have a mystical artifact with the power to destroy civilizations be the focus and it still have the same level of interest or tension. And you need a story that wraps up Indy's character arc. Raiders, the character arc there, by the end of that film, he's a believer. But by the start of this film, he's lost Marion somehow along the way. Temple of Doom, his character arc is basically, it stops him being a selfish prick who's just about fortune and glory, and he realizes there's other things to focus on in the world. So what does Crusade do and where can it take him? That's new. And I think Crusade's story is about him finally finding his place in the world and finding a relationship that ultimately is more important than any other treasure he could find. And the interest in Spain is that it's not a romantic relationship. It isn't Marion's being kidnapped and he's got to find Marion. It's his father. Repairing that above reaching out for the Grail at the end is the biggest revelation Indy as a character could have. Leave the Grail. Your dad's holding your hand.
What are you going to get for it?
What are you going to get for it? Your dad holding your hand is much more important.
Oh, yeah.
And if we didn't have the two further sequels, I think it would be very easy to assume once he's repaired this relationship with Henry, that's it for Indy. He just hangs up his adventuring boots. He just stays as a professor. So I think making the relationship the focus of the plot, it's probably why the film's as good as it is.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think it's one that feeds into what I was saying about what I like about the writing.
Yeah.
As we've been talking about, it's very reminiscent of Raiders, but separated by this emotional element. Emotion, which I think is very relatable. It's classic Spielberg, and it feeds right into the final sequence for me. The three tests that Indy has to complete have a double meaning. Obviously, there are high stakes because, it's death-defying stunts and tricks and traps. But now he must get through them. Otherwise, Henry's going to die as well. His dad's going to die.
Yeah.
That level of emotion is not evident in the first two films.
No.
In Raiders, for example, the quest for the Ark is just that. The quest for an object. But here, the Grail, eternal life, enlightenment, illumination, these all tie into, or could be metaphorical of, a meaningful relationship between father and son.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think it works for the better and separates Crusade out not just as a Raiders clone.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Boehm said, the writer, he said, given the fact that the third film in the series, you couldn't just end with them obtaining the object. No. That's how the first two films ended. So I thought, let them lose the Grail and let the father and son relationship be the main point.
Yeah.
Westy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, they do lose the first two objects in the first two films, and he never gets to take it away. He always, then Doom, he gives the rocks away and then the Ark gets taken off him. But I think the difference here is that Henry's done the work. It's not the process of finding the Grail. It's the process of why do we need to? What's the purpose of it? And their relationship is the Grail. Like both of you guys have said, I completely agree with everything that's been said. Their relationship is the Grail. The seal that the Grail moves across is memory. If you forget what that is, then, memory lives forever. Once you create that memory, it stays with you. And it can move with you, but it's your seal. If you let go of that, if you choose to forget about it, then it loses all of its power. And I think that's really important. All of the trials that Henry's written down and he's researched his whole life are them understanding each other, are them working with each other. You know, it's like life advice that he's finally given him that he hasn't been able to take, but he gets him in these trials. And the illumination that he's looking for is the relationship. You know, that's what it's all about. And the Grail is just a signifier of this. So I think because of the question and the way it's worded, it is a great question, but I think it answers its own question. It's that the MacGuffin is them. The Grail isn't the MacGuffin, it's the relationship. That's the whole point of the film.
Yeah.
I think for me, it does make the film even better. And going on to that, because of the writing as well, it's re-establishing the character. There's nothing to establish. It's just to fill in all of these gaps and the backstory. Nobody asked for the backstory to Indiana Jones, but Jeffrey Bourne gave for one, and it made it even more important. And that's why I honestly stand by that this should have been a trilogy and would have been, in my eyes, one of the most perfect trilogies ever made if they just left it the way it was.
Yeah.
Because we now have closure. We now have understanding of a character. We now have a character who's essentially retired and has got everything's fixed in his life. He's got his dad back. They're riding off into the sunset. Everything works. And I think that was in the writing, and I think that was intended. I think it was done in such a way that Spielberg can now go, I don't need to make another 2 films. Look how perfect this is. Can I do something else, please? Like, I don't need to see me contract out. I'll do it with River Phoenix and a younger version, or I'll do something else. And I don't think that might have panned out. But I think it was written this way, and that Henry has spent his whole life doing what Indy did in Raiders, looking, searching, finding, understanding, because that's what that film's about. It's the mystery of it. It's finding it. And then in Doom, it's the process of finding it. It's learning who's got it, who are the, how can we get over it. Henry's got all the answers. He's got them in his diary. All Indy has to do is believe in his dad's research, believe in what his dad believes in, and he will find it. And that's all in the writing. If you look at it on that level, it's an incredibly complex film.
It is.
About a relationship that's ultimately failed. It's over with. It is done. And if this hadn't happened, if the Nazis hadn't intervened and were looking for the Grail, they would never have reconciled. So it is a reconciliation story between a father and a son. It just happens to be an Indiana Jones movie, and it just happens to have these great set pieces, and it happens to be about the Holy Grail. But everything that's underneath it is just so clever and so brave to put in a swashbuckling, big, boomy action film, and especially to put it in an Indiana Jones film, which is why I love this even more than I should.
I don't think a third part of a blockbuster series like this from the 80s has any business being this good, to be quite honest.
No.
Well, there is a fascinating backstory to the progression of the third part of the series. It'll not surprise any of you listening that there were a number of stabs at the screenplay before it got to the film that we know and love. Yeah. Firstly, George Lucas wanted the film to be set in a haunted castle in Scotland. He fleshed out a treatment for the film, and a draft was written by Romance and the Stone writer Diane Thomas.
Right.
But Spielberg rejected this because he'd just played a major part in Poltergeist, a film we've infamously covered on the podcast. If you want to go back and listen to that.
Yeah.
If you're a fan, don't.
Yep. We'll say no more. So therefore Spielberg, he just wasn't interested in revisiting ghosts in any way, shape or form. So the next iteration had the Scottish castle as the prologue, and that depicted Indy on holiday there, and that gets interrupted by a ghost named Baron Seagrave, and the main story saw Indy travelling to Africa.
Yeah, that one titled Indiana Jones and the Monkey King, outrageous, and written by Chris Columbus. The main narrative revolved around the searching for the Fountain of Youth, which later got replaced by the Peaches of Immortality, a story from Chinese mythology. Right. It included Indy's friendship with a 200-year-old pygmy, a cannibalistic African tribe, and a chess game between Indy and the Monkey King, where the chess pieces were actual people. Indy actually got killed in this version, but was brought back to life at the end. That sounds
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spielberg backed away from this due to the backlash of cultural depictions that he received from Temple of Doom.
Yeah, I mean, just reading that, a cannibalistic African tribe, just stop there.
Yeah,
just
don't
stop there. 200-year-old pygmy, stop there.
Yeah.
It's that the haunted house idea they're based in Scotland, that they lifted that scene where they come into the castle and he's got that Scottish accent and he sneezes and I'm going to go to sniffle. That was in one of the drafts, so Spielberg lifted that out and said, put that in there. And then it was obviously like a little nod towards Connery as well and his Scottish heritage.
Lovely. Yeah. Right, okay, brilliant. Well, after all of this, they then revisited an idea that Lucas suggested sometime before, but was rejected for being too ethereal, he said.
Right.
The Holy Grail. Spielberg was unsure about it at first. He said, of course I was worried that people would hear Holy Grail and they would immediately think about the white rabbit attacking Monty Python.
Yes, of course.
Of course. He said, my first reaction was to say to everybody, run away! But he did like the idea of including a father-son dynamic. Of course he did.
Of course he did. Mm-hmm.
And he gave the reins to the Colour Purple writer Menno Meyers to write a draft. Meyers has a story credit for Last Crusade, as does Lucas. And this was then passed over to the final credited writer, Jeffrey Boehm. Jeffrey Boehm had previously penned The Dead Zone and Inner Space, and he also wrote Lethal Weapon 2 in 1989, a banner year for him, no doubt.
Yeah.
He's the sole credited writer, but in between his final draft on the 1st of March 1988 and filming starting 10 weeks later, another writer was drafted in to tidy up some of the narrative beats and work on the father-son dialogue.
And that writer was Barry Watson, but he's actually better known as noted playwright Sir Tom Stoppard. He would later go on to win an Oscar for Shakespeare in Love and also did uncredited rewrites on, of all things, Revenge of the Sith and Sleepy Hollow. So it seems like if it wasn't for his intervention, we'd have a completely different film to be talking about.
Right?
Yes. Spielberg is even quoted as saying Tom is pretty much responsible for every line of dialogue. I think he's referring to the dialogue between Indy and Henry there, but we're going to give you a flavour of the differences. Here it comes.
In Boehm's draft, Indy and Marcus find Henry's housekeeper murdered when they search Henry's house. But when they get to Venice, Indy is flirting with Elsa and sipping wine, having a wonderful time.
Just like you would be, Westy.
Absolutely, no. Venice.
Yeah, there were quite a few differences. The hierarchy of the villains was different in Boehm's version. Donovan dies in the tank instead of Vogel, who gets taken out by one of the tests.
Okay.
Elsa drinks from the wrong cup, having shot Henry.
Right.
And on the tests, there was only one, which was easily traversed by walking 3 steps forward.
Okay, right.
No jeopardy at all, and no thematic link to the writing at all either.
No.
Right.
And in Stoppard's script, Henry comes in on page 53, whereas previously it was page 76. And Stoppard also added in memorable moments like everything between Henry and Marcus in the tank, the heavy-handed stamp from the librarian that we've already talked about, Henry being thoroughly unimpressed by Indy's antics, which, you know, is hilarious, checking his watch during the pike chase at service, all that great stuff. But maybe best of all, added just that incredible moment we all loved where Indy is bigging Marcus up, only for that hard cut to reveal him totally out of his element.
Yeah, amazing.
Brilliant. Yeah, genius. Yeah, little moments, but added together, they make a huge difference.
Oh, yeah.
And to end on the screenplay, Spielberg said, I just thought that the Grail that everybody seeks could be a metaphor for a son seeking reconciliation with a father and a father seeking reconciliation with a son.
Yeah.
Simple, beautiful.
Yes.
The next 2 people on the crew list are old familiar faces. First up, the legendary music man and Spielberg's muse, John Williams. Yeah, Matt, what can be said about Williams here that hasn't been already?
I mean, that's literally pretty much my opening line I've got written down here. There were some questions where we just have to go, we can't say anything that isn't already being said or isn't just evident.
Already known. Yeah,
already known or obvious to everyone. I mean, it speaks for itself. Of course, it's excellent. We know how iconic the main theme is. So the question is, what does he add to it? And the theme for the Grail itself is brilliant. It's that gift of Williams just knowing what the sound for something should be like in musical form. You listen and you go, of course, that's what the Holy Grail would sound like if it had a theme. Of course it does. It's got that reverential, religious quality to it. He brings a likeness for all the action scenes that have Henry, like when they're escaping from the castle. The joy he brings to the music of the young Indy sequence at the start.
Yeah.
It is. It's obvious. It's John Williams scoring an Indiana Jones film. Of course, it's amazing.
Of course, it's great.
Of course, it's great. Yeah.
Of course, it is.
The thing is, he could have got really lazy here. He could have said, "Look, I've done 2 of these. Just rehash this, and I'll bring that theme there. I'll just maybe add a few more notes to Short Round's theme and make that Henry's, and just do that for the Grail." Or we've got, he had so much in his canon. But the thing is, I mean, we've spoke about John Williams so many times before.
Yeah, we have,
and I've said this before, and it's still relevant, and it's all I think of when I think of John Williams and his work. Like, you have a bad day at work, and you go in and you've half-arsed it a little bit, haven't you? Everyone's done it.
We've all been there.
You've just went, I'm not doing it today. I can't be arsed with this, and you just get away with it. John Williams has never done that. In his whole career, he's never gone into work and just went, I'm not really into this. Every single thing has got 100% every single time, no matter what film it is, no matter what genre it is, no matter what he's doing, it's always 100%. And this is no different. It's a completely fresh take. It's, again, a re-establishing of the character with themes that he's put in there where he's not scared. It's like, what's this? His difficult 56th album by this point. Like, how perfect do you need to be? It's like, people have only got so much music inside of them. John Williams just feels endless and everything that comes out of him is top tier genius.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, I can't see him lying awake in bed going, I've got to match that theme now. What am I going to do? He just wakes up excited going, yes, I get to match that theme now. Here we go. And that's how it feels. It's just effortless. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. It matches the visuals every single time. There's not much more to say about it. It's next level genius, as per usual, from John Williams.
Yeah, it is. I'm not going to try and labour this point by any stretch, but yeah, I love the motifs that Williams brings to the party. Each element has its own identity, perfectly intertwined with the visuals. Similar to what you fellas have said, the Nazis, the Grail, Indy and Henry, they've all got their own identity in the score.
Yeah.
There's a wondrous sense of adventure that Williams brings to the series as a whole, which of course is evident here again.
Yeah.
What I'm most impressed about is that Williams doesn't lean into his work previously too much.
Yeah.
The Raiders March is pretty much Indy's theme.
Mm-hmm.
And there are variations of it here and there, but they're so subtly woven into the tapestry of the music that they just go unnoticed.
Yeah.
If I came up with the Raiders March, I'd put
All
that
over
on
this.
every film that I worked on.
Yeah.
All of this backwards, maybe just rehab. For me, I listen to John Williams' score and I think he's not using the same notes as everybody else. He's got a piano that's got a different set of notes on it that nobody else has heard, that just writes music for him, and I can't get my head around it.
There's elegance and grace in this music combined with menace and a sense of urgency. It's like a movie score playground.
It is, yeah.
Who wants to go on the swings? So a legend in his field, probably the best ever to do it. Williams once again delivered for Spielberg, again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finally, another trusty pair of hands behind the camera. Douglas Slocum as DP, who was 75 years old at the time. Westy,
Yeah.
Big Dougie, what do you think of the guy?
This guy is just an enigma of a mystery wrapped in genius, as he always is. I mean, he shot so many iconic films. I'm not going to rattle them all off. Go and have a look at his work and just dive into anything he shot because it's all flawless. I've recently read the interview that he did around the time that he made this. And he says, he's just got to stay on his toes, 75 years old. There's usually, he says, about 300 to 500 setups per film that he's done. Indiana Jones, Steven Spielberg, he said there's 1,500 to 2,000 setups. That's the difference. And he says it works with such a pace where he thinks he's got a little bit of time to light something, and then he just hears Stephen shouting, "Now we're turning, now we're going," right? He just hasn't got time to light how he wants to. He hasn't got time to take his time. And the thing that I get from these three films, and especially this one, because it's 89, and the note from the prints that they've made from Raiders, that a lot of it was demanded for like a 70mm print to be done on like bigger screens. So he had to blow up the 35mm print to a 70. So they had to take that into account, especially when he's doing action sequences. He's thinking, well, it's a 70mm print now, and I'm going to have to blow this up. I'm going to have to keep the action in the middle of the frame. So if you look, he kind of does that a lot, which is then taken by Miller when he does the Mad Max series, especially Fury Road, keeps everything in the centre of the frame. Slocum kind of invented that. This is shot anamorphic again, so he's got to keep the ratio of the screen right. If it's going to be blown up to 70, he's got to keep all that in his mind. And then Spielberg wanted to use a lot more close-ups because he said this is a more intimate film for him, even though it's a big action film. And the amount of close-ups he uses in this compared to Raiders, he said it's about 30% more close-ups because it's all moving camera and it's more of a character piece. And he said it's shot on Kodak 95, and Raiders was shot on 93, 94, and 95 was the three film speeds that they shot it on. So this is Kodak 95, which is very clean grain, and it gives it that beautiful look. It's got this glow to it, and it's really nice. And he used that so he could blow it up and get the absolute best quality from it. And the thing that blows my mind, any of the Indiana Jones films, and the last 15 years of his career, he didn't use a light meter. Now, if you're shooting film, you couldn't see what you were getting, right? You had to just judge it by your eye. And he just said he didn't have time. He set the camera to what he knew it would see, and he shot the scene.
Amazing.
Unbelievable. And think of the size. Just think of the size of these sets as well, and how much light he's got to put into it.
Yeah.
I feel physically like I'm going to cry if I was given that kind of task. Like I would just break down. I would break down completely into just a puddle and just cry, and I just don't know how he does it. But it's just, that's the level of genius here. It's just seamless.
It is. Matt, your thoughts on Slocum's work here?
I think he's just as important to the success of the trilogy as anyone else, I'd say. The look that he brings to them is the same as the sound that John Williams brings. It's the same sharpness that Michael Kahn brings in the editing. There is, I'll use the word that West used, but there is a glow to these films, but it never tips over into being soft. And he's someone, he's completely at home in the action scenes, like getting up right up close when Indy's hanging off the edge of the tank on the gun turret. Great. He's just as comfortable keeping the camera still, like when Indy's taking the leap of faith. just as comfortable keeping the camera moving like during the motorcycle chase. There's almost a texture to these films. These are films I feel I can reach out and I can touch them and I know what they feel like on my fingertips. And that's down to Slocum. This was his last film. You talk about leaving on a high note. He couldn't have picked a better one.
Yeah. Go out on a high for certain. Yeah, I mean, he's just a master of those huge sun-drenched vistas in the Indy series. Yeah. It's in the open in Utah, the wide open landscapes in Haiti and Alexandretta. Just leave you breathless. But it's combined with the intimacies of the human interactions and Slocum's work to capture the dynamic emotional depth of the relationship core between Indy and Henry. You mentioned close-ups, Westy. Those reveal everything emotionally for me. Yeah, particularly on Harrison's face. There's no hiding place. Yeah. And he's completely exposed. He's not the hero that everybody has the perception of for Indiana Jones here with the inclusion of his dad.
Yeah, there's a vulnerability, isn't there?
Without doubt.
Yeah.
I think you can see that this film is just shot with the confidence and experience of a man who's seen it all. But I think the visuals also belie the general perception of a 75-year-old man. There's an energy in Crusade that you rarely see these days.
Yeah.
Strangely, Slocum has a bad memory, and he said that was the key to his overall success. Yeah. He said that some cameramen can fall back on the way they lit a certain type of set on several pictures ago, and they can sort of relax and do it quite easily. He said a typical example would be a courtroom. The number of times every cameraman in the world must have shot a courtroom, but I can never remember how I did it. So every time I come on set, it's as if I'm seeing something completely new, and I scratch my head and wonder how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Nice.
So working with familiar faces, some of which may have been losing their faculties, Spielberg has surrounded himself with unique talents which contributed immeasurably to the success of Indy 3.
Yes, definitely.
The end.
Stakes are increased in the third act. Marcus is being held captive in the belly of that foul beast, and it's up to Salah and the Jones boys to rescue him.
Yeah.
And this sequence is wonderfully set up with Marcus and assuring Donovan that they're meddling in powers they can't possibly comprehend.
Yeah, great line.
Great line. Indy, Henry, and Salah have eyes on them, though. I love it when Henry tells Indy to get out of sight, and he says, "Dad, we're well out of range." And then a missile just gets launched in their general direction.
Yeah, it goes past them as well, hits the car.
Yeah. Total Salah's brother-in-law's car.
Compensation for my brother's car.
That's 5 camels. Can't you count?
I said no camels. That's great. 5 camels. Yeah.
Does Salah really think that he can get out of this mess? If he can get out of this mess, does he think that those camels are going to be intact? It's crazy. 5 camels, you're going to cart them all the way to Alexandretta.
He's just panicked, hasn't he? Bless him. Run.
Run. And then the Brotherhood show up again, up to their old tricks, trying to kill everyone.
Yeah.
And the bit I love is when Henry gets a rush of blood, when he's left to his own devices by Indy and Salah, and takes advantage of the Brotherhood decoy and makes his way into the tank. It's a rescue, old boy. He's clearly taken inspiration from his son and is brave, stupid, maybe a combination of both. He's got an amazing line when he's being slapped by the leather gloves. Classic Nazi move.
Yeah.
What does the diary tell you that it doesn't tell us? It tells me that goose-stepping morons like yourself should try reading books instead of burning them.
Yeah. Delivery is
great. And then it's matched in a different tone by Donovan shouting, "Jones is getting away." Yeah. I think not, Herr Donovan. Not that Jones, the other Jones.
He's just,
yes.
Just laughing as he's writing that.
I love it. Oh, it's great. Yeah. Fantastic. And it leads into this amazing sequence.
It is. It's amazing. It's the essence of what Indiana Jones is to me. He's outnumbered. The enemy is technologically superior and he has no grand plan. You know, famously, he just makes it up as he goes along. Mm-hmm. And the improvisation is brilliant. Weaving back and forth in front of the tank, so it ends up taking its own troops out, using the rock to clog up the gun. And then it comes to my favourite shot of the film, probably my favourite moment, full stop, which is when he rides the horse up alongside the tank on the ridge and just flings himself off it to land on the track. And Spielberg knows, cut after the impact and not before. Yeah. That's what makes it great, because you keep, obviously, it's Vic Armstrong doing this stunt, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it keeps him in the frame. You know it isn't a cheat, and that's why it's so good. And the thing with the Indy trilogy is because they're so rooted in those 1930s serials, they all feel like they could be chopped up in a 15 or 20-minute parts, because there's always a cliffhanger every 15 or 20 minutes. And this one, when Indy then gets kicked off the tank and he's caught on the gun, and Vogel is smacking his hands with the shovel, and then orders the tank to veer into the wall so Indy will be squashed.
Yeah.
I mean, if that was an actual cliffhanger, you'd be out of your seat.
Oh, of
It's
course.
so brilliant. And Spielberg's ability to juggle multiple moments in a scene like this, it's just unparalleled. Indy hauls himself back up. The music kicks in. Brody gets an accidental punch in the face to send him flying. Henry's fallen on the tracks. Indy's got to save him with the whip until Salah can ride up. All the while he's smacking Vogel's face into the tank over and over. And Spielberg just can handle all those different moving elements and make it seem effortless. He knows instinctively where to put the camera. It's massively done. And just the last thing to mention is the lesson that this sequence gives us. And it's a lesson I can't believe we have to talk about in the year 2025, but apparently we do. And the lesson is, if you ever meet a Nazi, just punch them in the face. Just punch those fuckers.
You're listening, everyone.
Yeah.
Taking care of Nazis 101. Punch them in the face.
Exactly. Yeah. It's an amazing sequence.
It is. It's fantastic.
So this section with the tank, the film's action centrepiece, was originally conceived to be much shorter in length and was included as the behest of George Lucas, obviously. 2 days were allocated to filming the scene, which later became 10 days. Classic George Lucas. Yeah.
Spielberg decided that it should be about both Joneses working together to help each other out.
Yeah.
And he storyboarded the entire thing and later said that he had much more fun doing the storyboard than actually filming it because it looks very complicated.
Yeah.
And effects supervisor George Gibbs said that Last Crusade was the toughest job of his career. But to be fair, he also didn't make it easy on himself because he went to a museum looking for a French World War II tank for the sequence.
Brilliant.
Couldn't find what he was looking for, so he ended up building one himself, which was then flown over to Almira in Spain for the filming.
Right, yeah, like an actual tank. It wasn't just like a shell or anything like that.
No,
it was a literal tank, steel tank.
I'll just build one, eh?
There were actually two tanks on set, that one and one that was made of aluminium. It had polyurethane tracks, which didn't touch the ground, which meant that Ford could have his face pressed against them without any risk to ripping his face off.
Okay.
The Nazi officer who's looking at what's happening above through the telescope says something in German to his little mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no subtitle. He actually says, the Americans, they fight like girls.
And then gets walloped.
Yeah.
So then from there, this whole set piece has just been wonderful. And then you just get that moment and you just think, oh no, there's the cliff, right? It's a big wide shot and you see what's coming. And that lovely moment where it's just a close-up and you're seeing he's kind of stumbling and the tank lifts up and he falls and you don't know if he's falling off or he's falling back and it seems like he's definitely on the tank. And then it just goes over and it goes all the way down. I mean, it's not the best effect in the world, is it?
No, it's not.
It just, this moment is wonderful because it's just the silence in the sound design.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I've lost him. And I never told him anything. And it's like, it just gets me every single time. He's just talking to Marcus, but he's just looking, it's like 5 minutes would have been enough. I didn't tell him anything. He realizes that he has to do it face to face for it to make sense, for it to matter. He has to tell him what is in his heart, not what's in his books. And it just really hits me every time. And they're just looking over. And again, there's the action, the emotion, and the comedy. There's the exposure triangle, all
perfect.
three of them.
Yeah.
And he just starts climbing up. It's fine. We get relief. They're still looking over. Denham Elliott here, again, a beautiful comedy beat. He just doesn't believe his eyes.
Yeah. He's trying to work it out.
And it's just a lovely bit of relief. But it's just the way he stood behind, like Matt said earlier, just this performance from Ford. It's like, I believe he's climbed up that cliff.
Yes.
I believe he's fallen off that tank, climbed up that vine and just went, all right, okay. And he's made it. And he's like, phew. And
His
you believe it
reactions.
because you've seen it done so many times in the last two films.
Yeah.
You've seen him, hanging off a bridge, praying to Sheba and then catching a Shankara stone, then climbing up a bridge and getting away with it.
Yeah.
You've seen him do it.
He can do it, yeah.
And it's just that hug he gives him, that embrace. And he just looks like so
Thought
childlike.
I'd lost you, boy.
I thought I'd lost you, boy. And he's like, And he's like, right, that's it. Yeah, I'm still not telling him anything. It doesn't matter, stiff up a lip, let's go. Like, come on. And then it's just the way he crumbles to the floor. And then there's that, again, a lovely Spielberg comedy moment, and the hat just blows in.
Yeah.
It's just a wonderfully emotional moment and humorous and, action-packed and brilliant. And it's The Last Crusade.
It is the Last Crusade.
So-
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
And to get the effect of the tank going over the cliff, a quarter scale model was driven over a 50-foot cliff, and then miniatures and models were used to create the explosion at the bottom.
Yeah, like Westy said, it's not fantastic. Probably the worst effect in the film, to be honest.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, we can give it a pass, 1989, with no digital effects possible.
Without a doubt. Not a problem.
So with a great emotional beat, our boys come together as a stronger whole to fight the might of the Nazis.
Yeah.
So with all the crew safe for now, They head to Alexandretta in the final test of faith in the search of the Holy Grail. The penitent man will pass, Westy.
He will. And this is what we've been building up to. It's the tests that Henry's been waiting his whole life for and doesn't actually get to do. That whole turn from Donovan, that gunshot, the sound of it.
It's a classic Indy sound, that, isn't it?
It just rings out. And how can he turn around and say that, I don't know if Donovan's a nice guy or not?
I know.
It's
just evil.
Just turned around and just blatantly shot Henry when he's got the diary, he's got nothing else from him. And the tests are just fantastic, I think. It's just baffling until you actually realise how he gets through them. And it's just the way it cuts back to Henry and he's just praying and he's trying to get through it. And he feels the pain. And the penitent man, and it's them bonding, like I said before. Path of God, Breath of God, both absolutely brilliant. But them bastards laying these traps and like Jehovah... Oh, yeah. There's a big J just right there, look. Yeah. Just there. See how big it is? And it's so easy. Go on. You know you
J. That's so good.
So confident, isn't it? He's like, Jehovah, the word of God. Jehovah, okay. J.
That's because it's already been set over the cutaway with Henry saying begins with an I.
Jehovah begins with an I. And then there's this bit that has so much controversy because like the film's perfect up until this bit. And they're like, really? Are you missing the point completely? The leap from the lion's head is the bit that lets you down.
Yeah.
It's a leap of faith. It is
exactly.
what it is.
It's exactly what it is. It can be anything you want it to be. It's a leap of faith.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's forced perspective, so that means it doesn't mean anything. It's just a way of explaining it and how it reveals itself. And then he throws the sand on it. Fine. My way of thinking is nobody else has done this. The knight has set these up and nobody else has done this. So everything's just brand new. Everything's fresh. If it has been painted, if it has been camouflaged, then no one else has bothered because everyone would have got Jehovah wrong. He's not just going to come and fix the stone again, is he? And then, there's that one guy who goes in first, gets his head taken off and it rolls out because the blades are that sharp. They've never been used before. So Indy's the first person to get through all this. But these three tests are perfect because it's just his lessons to Indy. Trust yourself, take a leap of faith. It's perfect father-son advice and he nails it every time.
Yes, he does. Like so much jeopardy, like I mentioned before. Before they get to this, the exterior of this sequence was shot in Petra, Jordan, a now famous location, mostly thanks to its depiction in this film. The number of visitors exponentially increased after Last Crusade, literally from a few thousand per year to millions per year after this film.
It looks the same, so you get payoff. It looks exactly the same.
And it was shot during the reign of King Hussein bin Talal and Queen Noor. And they were invited to the set and got on famously with Spielberg, so much so that the King provided production with 4 horses and the Queen gave Spielberg a lift.
Of course, a lift to set every now and again. Yeah, obviously he ingratiated himself well within the royal family in Jordan.
Classic. The first Grail test incorporated a mixture of practical and miniature blades. The second one was originally conceived as a tarantula crawling up Indy's leg when he incorrectly steps on the J, which was shot but didn't look great. This was switched out for what we see in the film. It's a stuntman hanging through a hole above a 30-foot cavern.
Still dangerous. 30 foot.
30 foot's very dangerous, yes.
Yeah.
8 foot is dangerous.
Yeah. The third trial as well, that was created with a mortal bridge, painted backgrounds, and a puppet of Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Works out fine for me.
Fine for me as well.
So yes, Indy's made it through the tests. He meets the knight. First thing to say when he comes through into this incredible set, the design of the set and the design of the costumes in this cavern are superb.
Yes. Yeah.
Magnificent. The knight looks amazing in his gear. He's bathed in light from the fire, but he's almost grey, reflecting his age, because he's like 700 years old.
Yeah, he's lit with a separate light source, isn't he, to give him that look?
It must have.
Yeah, I think so.
Must
definitely.
have.
Yeah.
And it's what Westy was saying before. It's a dramatic beat. The knight stands up and he goes for Indy. Then followed directly by a comic beat when he swings and completely misses him because he's knackered.
Yeah.
And then there's the light-hearted accompaniment of the music as well.
Yeah.
But then Indy is followed into the cave very quickly by Donovan and Elsa. No fear of going through them tests. Straight in there. I mean, I'm thinking about the second one in particular.
Yes. Yeah. He doesn't mark that, does he? The Jehovah.
No. He stops the blades.
He stops the blades and he marks the bridge. But the second one, I wouldn't fancy me chances.
No.
Jay. And then Donovan bursts in there with absolutely no respect for his surroundings or circumstances or what's at play here. He doesn't even acknowledge the knight's existence.
No.
And there's a beautifully subtle moment as he says, I don't know what to pick. And Elsa says, I'll pick for you. Thank you, Doctor. And there's a lovely moment when Elsa hands over the grave of this beautiful, ornate cup. She looks over at Indy and she kind of like shakes her head. Saying, I'm on your side. That's wonderful.
That's great, yeah.
It can be missed.
It can be. Yeah, you've got to keep your eyes peeled.
But it's great.
Yeah.
And the score swells and then quietens as Donovan guzzles down on the water, and a moment of calm before this incredible piece of FX.
Mm-hmm.
The degeneration of Donovan's head is considered the first ever complete digital composite shot.
Right?
Yeah, and he's filmed in various stages of degeneration with makeup, inflatable pads which we used to make his eyes appear sunken, and a mechanical wig which grew his hair. A number of shots were taken, including puppet heads, and then digitally melded together to make one seamless, seemingly single shot.
It's amazing because in my head there's cutaways like there is normally on those kind of things where because Spielberg didn't want to do that, he's seen that a million times, cut away and come back, degeneration, cut away, come back even more.
Yeah, his skeleton was on marionette style wires and slammed into the wall to gain the desired effect.
It really works.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, we talked about the effects work with the tank, which, we gave a pass but not great. This really works.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
His eyes sink into his head. Dear me.
Yeah.
And then Indy chooses wisely. The cup, very simple cup, the cup of a carpenter. Mm-hmm. What resonates, and I think it will resonate with a lot of people, is the delivery of this by the knight.
Yeah.
He chose poorly. Yeah. You chose wisely. It's just magnificent delivery.
Yeah.
Well, for the night, actually, Laurence Olivier was wanted and he was interested in the role, but he wasn't in the best of health, so he couldn't take it, and eventually he would pass away in 1989.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that would have added an extra bit of kudos, wouldn't it? Laurence Olivier.
Yeah, just for 5 minutes at the end.
But instead, we've got this guy, TV and theatre stalwart, Robert Edison.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's a worthy replacement. He was 80 at the time, and he died in 1991, so not long after.
Right.
And he hadn't been in a movie since the early 70s, and he was a little nervous on set, constantly asking Spielberg if he was performing correctly.
Oh, bless him.
God bless him.
I know, right? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
He chose
wisely. Yeah.
Too right.
And then we get to the ending, and it ends with such a perfect last scene. I sometimes cry just thinking about it, about how good it is.
Love it.
And it's set up perfectly because of how subtle the role reversal between Indy and Henry has been. But throughout the film, up until this point, Indy has basically been the father figure. He's dealing out the lessons. He's taking charge. He's, sorting out the situations, protecting Henry. All Henry cares about is the Grail. But by the end, Elsa, the greed has got her. She's broken the seal. The place is crumbling. And then everything changes in terms of the characters. The Grail becomes Indy's obsession. If he can just reach out and get it, he's so close. Yeah. And it leads to the one moment Henry acts like an actual father. And I say he's holding Indy's hand while he does it, what a father should do from birth. Indiana, let it go.
Yeah,
just
amazing.
Beautiful delivery. That's what a father's wisdom should be. Henry has arrived at his point, and that's why Indy listens. And I think there's also the unspoken subtext, which is the cruel irony that while Henry was obsessed with the Grail, which is the key to eternal life, his wife was dying and he didn't realise.
Yeah.
And I always feel that kind of fuels his quest to make up for that in a way. Yeah. If I can find the eternal life, he obviously can't bring his wife back, but it'll be a victory.
Yeah. The temple set was built in 6 weeks and used 80 feet of hydraulics and 10 gimbals to create the earthquake effect. It took 20 minutes to reset the hydraulics to the starting position for retakes. So obviously they were few and far between, I would have thought.
Special effects, they are absolutely outstanding. This looks and feels like this place will crumble at any moment.
Yeah.
But then it's after that scene, which obviously goes back to my opening quote. Henry is calling Indy Jr. again, and Salad chimes in. What does it mean, this Junior? That's his name. Henry Jones Jr.
Junior.
I like Indiana. We're named the dog Indiana. And then my quote.
Named after the dog.
I've got a lot of fond memories of that dog.
Yeah.
He's so annoyed. It's so funny. It's so beautifully played because this scene genuinely feels like this is the last time you'll see these characters. It really feels like Spielberg's made his mind up. This is the last time you see them, so it's going to be perfect.
It's called The Last Crusade as well.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Indy finally at peace with his place in the world. He's with his two best mates. He's mended his relationship with his father. And that last bit of dialogue, after you, Junior. Yes, sir. Couldn't be any more perfect than the Raiders march striking up as they literally ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to have to go and have a cry about it.
Amazing. Don't blame it.
So good, man.
It is so good.
So good.
Perfect ending. Perfect ending.
Perfect. No notes whatsoever.
No notes.
You imagine like how Spielberg felt when that came together in the edit.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's the end of one of the most perfect trilogies for me.
It's absolute magic.
Yeah.
So the perfect way to end the perfect trilogy, really. Mm-hmm. Our heroes literally riding off into the sunset. So pleased they didn't come back for any more.
No, of course they didn't.
Reception and awards.
With an already established hardcore movie fan base, Last Crusade was always going to be a home run.
Yes, it was.
On a $48 million budget, it returned $474 million worldwide, making it the highest grossing film of the year.
Wow.
It even beat out the much anticipated and ballyhooed Batman to top spot in 1989.
wow.
It did, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It also ended the 80s as the third highest grossing film of the decade behind E.T. and Empire Strikes Back. The 80s really were Spielberg and Lucas's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really was their playground, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
It also struck a chord with critics who generally favoured its return back to the lighter side of Indy after Temple of Doom. Rolling Stone said, the wildest and wittiest Indy of them all. Variety loved the father-son dynamic and their amusing sexual one-upmanship, quote unquote.
Okay, yeah.
The Hollywood Reporter said that Connery and Ford should get Oscar recognition.
Right.
Which is bold.
Yeah.
And finally, Roger Ebert. What do you think he gave it out of 4, fellas?
I think he's given it full whack here.
I think he loved it 4.
The big 4 for 4.
So. I hope so.
Oh, it was strong. Not that strong. It was 3.5 out of 4.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Still hefty.
Yeah.
He was particularly enamoured by the opening scene, saying it had the style of illustration that appeared in the boys' adventure magazines of the 1940s. He loved it.
Does, yep.
And looking through a contemporary lens, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade has 84% on Rotten Tomatoes and a high 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb.
Yeah.
Not surprisingly, Last Crusade got a smattering of nominations on the awards circuit.
Yep, that's right. At the Oscars, it won Best Sound Editing and was also nominated for Best Sound and Original Score. At the BAFTAs, it was nominated for Visual Effects and Sound, and Connery got a Best Supporting Actor nod, which he also got at the Golden Globes. But nice. He did lose out on both. At the Globes, he lost out to Denzel Washington for Glory, and at the BAFTAs, it went to Ray McAnally for My Left Foot instead.
Right.
Yeah, of your hometown vote, that one.
Yeah.
Obviously.
That's more BAFTA's fodder, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
My Left Foot, yeah.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, Denzel, no arguing with that.
Glory, he's amazing in that.
He's fantastic in that. He's fantastic in everything, isn't he?
Of course he is. I suppose nobody was expecting too much more than that from an awards perspective, really. Although, I think that Denham Elliott was overlooked in the supporting categories, to be honest.
Yeah, I just don't think he had enough screen time, did he, to make that much of an impact? I think it's in hindsight, he's amazing.
And Connery's eaten up so much of that screen time as well.
Yes, you're right.
So I'll go look him.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise, a spectacularly successful installment of the Indy trilogy, but there was life left to be squeezed out of the character in the years to come.
Yeah.
Sequels and influence.
It was framed as the last Indy film. It looks and feels like the last Indy film. But was it? Regrettably, it was not. But before we get to the sequels, Westy, in the years since, where have you seen Last Crusade's influence, and what do you think its legacy is?
I think its influence is all over any kind of, tongue-in-cheek, little bit of humour, a little bit of action, a little bit of emotion film that's come out since then. Anything that's got any kind of action bias, anything that's got any kind of adventure bias to it, has got elements of Indiana Jones, and especially Last Crusade. Straight off the top of my head, it was the Mummy franchise came to mind.
I agree, yeah.
Pirates of the Caribbean, especially the first one.
Yeah.
Very similar tone. And that kind of comes into its own and loses it a little bit. Later on, it delves into the more of the, 70% of archaeology is done in the library, and you get a lot of the Dan Brown novels, especially the Da Vinci Code, looking for the clues. It goes back to that kind of divine intervention. So I think it laid across a lot of things. I mean, National Treasure, you can go on and on. It's absolutely indisputable. Anything with action, adventure, a little bit of humour, a little bit of emotion, it's Indiana Jones, really.
Yeah, in the decade of the blockbuster, which Spielberg basically started with Jaws in 75, I think it's entirely appropriate that The Last Crusade rounded out the decade as the most popular film.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford started and ended the decade as the biggest movie star on the planet, probably, which is pretty much a spectacular feat. We've talked about his 80s in the past and didn't hit any bum notes.
No.
I think that's the legacy of the film and the Indy series overall. Also, the prologue of Last Crusade, directly responsible for the George Lucas produced TV show, The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles from the early 90s.
Good point, yeah.
I think the influence is more Muddy Waters. I don't think it's this film standalone which has had the influence. I think it's just the series overall, the original trilogy. And I just think that blockbusters became a little bit more complicated over time with a little bit less clarity. A cue which wasn't taken from Last Crusade. This now feels like a throwback blockbuster. I mean, I know it was in the 80s, but it's not surprising that it does, considering the original conceit of the films were a throwback to serials of the 40s.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think a lot of legacy. The influence has spawned a lot of cheap knockoffs, I suppose, like all good touchstones in culture do, really.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. What about you, Matt?
Very similar, obviously. Legacy, I think its legacy, as probably most people would agree, it's the last great Indy film. And it should have been left as the definitive ending for the character. Yeah. Influence, just exactly what you used to have said. It's still the benchmark, along with Raiders and Temple of Doom, for adventure films. It's how you make adventure films that aren't just about stunts and set pieces, but they have a great story. And then specifically this one, it's how you do an adventure film with genuine emotion in it as well, which I would say the previous two don't have that. So I think that's its legacy for me. This is how you make a blockbuster with heart.
Absolutely.
Since Last Crusade, there have been a number of different stories floating around to continue the Indy saga. There are too many to outline here, but there were two ideas that went quite far.
Yes, they were. Yes. The first one, Indiana Jones and the Saucer Men from Mars, which is the single worst title I've ever heard for a film.
The Monkey King's up there, like...
This is an idea that George Lucas was developing in the early 90s with Die Hard and fugitive writer Jeb Stewart holding the pen before Jeffrey Boehm had a bash later on.
Right.
The idea being that Indy is jilted at the altar by his bride-to-be, who it turns out has been kidnapped because of her work in the discovery of aliens. The quest is to find her while battling aliens, Russians, flying saucers, and a ticking time bomb. Yes.
And then Indiana Jones in the City of the Gods came very close to happening. Spielberg and Ford loved the idea, but Lucas not so much. Frank Darabont wrote and developed it, actually, at the turn of the century, and it included some elements from the Saucerman script. It was set in the 50s. Indy is in possession of a mysterious crystal skull from a Russian colleague. Marion is in there searching for the lost City of the Gods as well. And aliens do appear at the end, but most agree that this was handled much more competently than it is in the fourth film that we did get.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, Darabont said that he wasted a year of his life on the project. Suddenly the whole thing goes down in flames because George Lucas doesn't like the script. There you go. And he later told Lucas that he was crazy for rejecting his idea.
Yeah.
And what did Lucas do? Just blow over raspberries and shout Star Wars, as he always does.
So plot elements that aren't too dissimilar to what we ended up with in 2008 when Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, 19 years after Crusade.
Yeah.
And 15 years after that, in 2023, we got Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Good, bad, or indifferent, Matt, what do you think of the sequels after Last Crusade?
Crystal Skull, I will always maintain, has a great first half. The opening in the warehouse, the chase at the university campus, great stuff. Really love those. It's when the film gets to the jungle at the halfway point, and it genuinely feels to me like Spielberg directed the first half, and then he let George Lucas have a go at the second, because it feels very Star Wars prequels, very lightweight. It's not her fault, but when Karen Allen turns up as Marion, that's when the tone of the film changes.
Yeah.
And it just becomes goofy and lightweight. It doesn't nail what the story should be or what the stakes are, and there's too many characters in there. To waste Cate Blanchett like the way this one does is an absolute crime.
Yeah.
On the rare occasion I have watched this again, I always forget John Hurt is in this and why. Yeah. I mean, John Hurt's a great actor.
He is.
Wasted. Completely wasted in this, so it's fine to a point, but after watching the original trilogy, I'm rarely in the mood to stick this one on.
Yeah.
And then Dial of Destiny, only seen it once. I can't see myself ever revisiting it, to be honest. The main thing for me, I just thought they've actually made an Indiana Jones film that's just quite boring for the most part. Like, some bits are okay, the horse chase, the marketplace chase. But overall, I just found it really depressing. Like, Indy, his son's being killed, Marion's left him, and he just looks like an alcoholic with no money at the start. Like, who wants to see Indy like that?
Yeah.
And then when you consider how Last Crusade finishes, that victory lap into the sunset. I mean, even Crystal Skull, it finishes with them getting married, which you think, right, okay, that's a nice ending if they're going to continue it. Fair enough. And Dial of Destiny just finishes with, well, he's not getting divorced now, isn't that good? I just say that's not how an Indiana Jones film should end. And then I think the element most people have an issue with is the time travel, and I actually don't. I was kind of fine with that, but I think if you're going to bring that into it, really commit to it. That should be the halfway point of the film. He ends back in time. And I honestly think they should have just had it in Berlin at the time of Last Crusade, because then you would have had old and young Indy running around and like Back to the Future 2. Back to the Future 2. And I just think brilliant. At some point that got lost and they just got, oh, no. I think they must have had a really bad test screening at some point about the time travel aspect, and they've just rewritten it. So, yeah, I doubt I'll ever go back to it again because I just found it quite depressing.
Ooh, damning.
Yeah.
Not too many positives, Westy. Do you have any more?
Not many coming this side either. I'm afraid. I mean, I really wanted to like these. I mean, you guys know as well.
Of course you did.
And I really wanted to like these to the point where I just almost told myself that it didn't really exist, or that I'd seen something different, or that I'd rewritten in my head and woke up the next day and went, actually, that was all right. I'll go and see it again. I did try them multiple times, both of them in the cinema. You always want to see more. Yeah. Because it was just fantastic and it was so enjoyable and it was such a great franchise. And yes, it probably could have made loads more money, and it probably did make loads more money, and fine, but not everything's about money, really. And I would much prefer the last ever thought in my mind of Indiana Jones would be that John Ford sunset shot.
Yeah.
Them just riding away, and that's all I get from it. That's all you need from it. And they have tried, and unfortunately, I think they're just forgettable. Yeah, just don't watch them. Watch them if you like them, great, but that's absolutely don't hold the torch to the first three. Not at all. No chance.
Well, my overriding thoughts on the sequels is that they are disposable, fine in isolation, but just not good enough to hold a candle to the original trilogy.
No.
I'm obviously not sticking my neck out with that opinion. It's a very popular one.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it has got to do with nostalgia. I've said it about other film series in the past, but these were just on a hiding to nothing, considering the time that had passed and the core audience had grown up. They were never going to win us over. No. Aside from that, fundamentally, the writing just isn't up to scratch.
No.
Spielberg had moved on as a director.
Yeah.
And I don't think that he even wanted to do Crystal Skull.
No.
And then, the Mangold-helmed Dial of Destiny, some memorable moments. It pulls at the heartstrings, kind of like you were saying, Matt, but it's not the emotion that's in Last Crusade.
No,
it's dour. It's downbeat.
It is. It's dour. It's Kramer versus Kramer.
It is.
It's
Kramer versus that. I think, like we've been saying, I think there are some good moments in both films. I'll not necessarily say no to another Indy story because I do love the character. It's never going to taint my opinion of the original three. So I'm not really full of vitriol about any additions to the canon. They tell their own story and have their own place in time of what was going on at that time. Yeah. So that's fine with me. The three, they are canonized now, and the rest doesn't matter. Fine.
It doesn't.
But Westy, when I think about the Crystal Skull, the first thing I think of is your impression of Ray Winston.
Yeah.
Shouting, Jonesy.
Jonesy!
There it is. And that is infinitely better than anything on King of Crystal Skull. So we have that to be thankful for. Thank you, Westy.
Yes. You're most welcome.
So 2 films after Last Crusade, leaving a lot of people shrugging their shoulders. They certainly have their moments, and there'll be more moments added with additional sequels in the future, no doubt. Yeah. But the original trilogy will always have an elevated place in movie history.
Absolutely.
All the Right Movies ranking.
Finally, we've passed all of the tests, and before we can ride into the sunset, we're summarising our thoughts and scoring the film out of 10. And for me, this is a top-notch, first-rate, top-of-the-pile blockbuster.
Mm-hmm.
We've rarely seen the likes of this kind of blockbuster since 1989. But calling it that is doing Last Crusade a disservice, I think, because it plunders emotional depths not seen in the series or in too many blockbusters previously. It's also an irresistible romp with incredible action sequences, a dialogue full of charm and hilarity, top-rate acting, and location shooting to die for. It's pretty much perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It is the perennial second-best Indy, and I'm no different. I prefer Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only thing stopping Last Crusade getting top marks. So it's 9.5 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you, Westy?
I mean, we know my love for these, and this isn't going to be a surprise to anybody, really. Raiders is, and I've gone on record many times and said it's my favourite film of all time, the best film ever made, and I'll stand by that. This comes very, very close to the nostalgia to it, the love I have for it, the childhood memories that I get every time just certain scenes come on. Every just a little lick of music, and I just feel 7 again, 8 again, and it just feels like so alive again. And the reason I'm also going to give this a 10 is because there's never, ever going to be anything like it.
Yeah.
You're never going to have a Sean Connery and a Harrison Ford coming together like this again. It's just never, ever going to happen. It's not going to hit all the beats that it needs to hit, and it's not going to be as successful as this. This is a real success story, something I'll hold close to my heart. It's definitely second to Raiders, but that's not saying much.
No.
It's good, and it works, and it's amazing, and it's a 10.
Impassioned Westy, and no surprise about the score.
Of course.
Matt, what about you?
I mean, it's part of the original Indy trilogy, so of course I love it. Who doesn't? It's barely aged today, and it's just an absolute joyful romp. And I think that double decision to give it A, an overtly comic edge, and B, an overtly emotional journey for Indy is what makes the film really sing. Yeah. Because plot-wise, enemy-wise, it is pretty familiar beats here, for certainly the first half.
Yeah.
But the action is great. The tank sequence is one of Spielberg's best. The 3 tests at the end are wonderful. And Ford and Connery are just absolute dynamite together. So, is it as good as Raiders? And of course, it's not in most ways. It's a bit softer. It's a bit familiar. It's following the template rather than establishing it. But on the other hand, it's funnier. And it's much more emotional. Yes. And I think when you really analyse it and picked it apart like we've done, it's really brought home how difficult it was for this film to exist in the way it does. The writing is just superb, and it looks effortless, and it looks easy. And I think you have to really look at what it's done to appreciate the craft that's gone into it. Is this top marks in the way that Raiders is? No, but I think you can have different kinds of 10s. And for the way that this makes me feel at the end, and for how it wraps the character up, or so we thought, it's still a 10 all the way.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Very high scoring so far. But we have our 4th and final score for Last Crusade, and that's coming from our ardent followers on X.
Right.
They know a classic when they see one, and there was a lot of interest in this poll.
Here we go.
From Ryan D at Doug_85, he said, absolute masterpiece, 10. Connery and Ford as father and son is fantastic. It's a rare film which can get away with them driving through Salzburg before chancing on a sign pointing right to Venice, 170 miles south, and left to Berlin, 330 miles north, and absolutely nowhere else.
That's a good point. Never thought about that. That's a good point.
Ian Cusick at Ian Cusick said 8.5. Some of the effects haven't aged well. Always hated the scene in the tunnel where the small plane's wings are being cut off.
All right, yeah.
It's a great fun movie, but always feels as though it's set up to say goodbye. Shame they didn't, in hindsight.
Yeah,
agreed,
that's fair. Agreed on
agreed.
that.
Yeah.
Mark Crandley at M. Crandley said, I think it's maybe a 5. I have no clue why this doesn't get the same scrutiny as the other sequels. It devolves into such silliness, especially in the detour into Germany. It has a slower pace and fewer peaks than its 2 predecessors, and Connery feels out of place.
Wow. All right.
Okay, fair enough.
I wouldn't have thought that in a million years, but that's an opinion
I haven't heard before.
Hey, yeah, it's an original opinion.
Yeah, why not?
Love that.
And here's another one from P. Miller at Steerrad BMX. He said, not a fan, and I can't wrap my head around why it's held in such esteem. The father-son banter is what the kids call cringe. I'd rather rewatch Crystal Skull, although I might say it's not as terrible as Dial of Destiny.
I mean, fair enough. That's fine.
Everybody's got their opinion. That's what makes the world go round.
Yeah.
So a great cross-section of opinions there. Some surprising ones, certainly.
Yeah.
What do you think Last Crusade averaged out of 10 on X, chaps?
I think it's going to be resoundingly positive, isn't it, Matt? I think we're probably going to have to look at about a 9 or a 9.5.
I'll go 9.5. I think some people won't give it the 10 because they rate Raiders that high.
Yeah,
and they won't,
there is that.
They won't look at the way I mean Westy do, so they'll go 9.5.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're on the money, the pair of you.
Oh.
Sound working out. It got a big time, 9.5 out of 10 from our followers on X. A huge score for a huge film.
It is.
So with the scores from X and our scores combined, that gives Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade a big time 39 out of 40. A huge score.
Yes.
Huge.
Coming next time on All the Right Movies, John, Westy and Matt will be scaling heights we have yet to in our history. It is finally here, Matt. A Disney film, no doubt.
Yes.
Julie Andrews, Mary Poppins.
Yes. Mary
Poppins.
Incredible impressions will be coming on that one, no doubt.
What a treat that'll be.
That'll be lots of fun.
Outside of our classic podcast, we are super busy here at ATRM. Our latest episode of Double Feature came out last week. We went all 80 sleaze as we dug deep into To Live and Die in LA and Manhunter, two classics starring the obviously well-known William Peterson.
Mm-hmm. All right, get over it.
Big Billy Peterson.
A great episode, that one. Two great films.
It was, loads of fun.
That's exclusive to our supporters on Patreon, as is a brand new episode of our monthly review show, The Watch List, which will be with you next Friday. Yeah. So sign up to patreon.com/alltherightmovies to support us and get access to hundreds of podcasts created by us guys.
Yes.
Be sure to choose wisely. Outside of those podcasts, there are regular episodes of Showreel coming out every 2 weeks, alternate to this show. As we said before, we'll say it again. If you're enjoying what we're doing here, please, please, please consider giving us a positive rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Podchaser, or any other streaming platform that you use. Mm-hmm. That'll take you 60 seconds, but it really makes the world of difference to us if you could find it in your heart.
It really does. Yes, thank you so much, guys.
It does indeed.
In between all of our podcasts, we are active on social media every day. On X, we are at ATRightMovies. We have a loyal group of followers who absolutely love our making of movie threads. Just like our podcast, they tell the making of story from classic and hit films. And just like our podcasts, all the behind-the-scenes stories we tell come from the cast and crew or is verified by at least 3 sources. So go check them out. You are bound to love them.
Yeah,
you will indeed.
On Instagram and Threads, we are at all_rightmovies. Our threads are on Threads as well. And they're also on Blue Sky, where we are at alltherightmovies.com. On TikTok, search at alltherightmovies. We also have a Facebook group. The door is open for you to walk right in and enjoy some great movie chat. You don't have to go through a series of tests to join.
No, definitely not.
No. A couple of questions, but that's quite easy.
They're pretty easy.
We are on YouTube as well. Watch our videos if you can. A follow and a like wouldn't go miss either. That's youtube.com/alltherightmovies. And our website is alltherightmovies.com.
Certainly is.
And that is a wrap, everyone. It was rather wonderful, wasn't it?
It was rather wonderful.
It was.
We're going to Castle Brunval to view the tapestries. So don't forget to come back in 2 weeks for Mary Poppins and sign up to be an ATRM patron if you can. Thanks, everyone.
Yes,
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you so much, guys. We have many tapestries.
How dare you?